Okay.
Let's
So
plagiarize Shayrah's hard work.
This hangout on air is live. I'm hoping that's the case. Can we double check that that's happening so everybody... I don't want it to be like we do this and then that it's all
Nobody's
fucked
actually
up. All right,
there.
it's working. All right. So, welcome everyone to the very first episode of ThereforeGod. I've been kicking this idea around in my head for a long time, and I want to do it for a few reasons. One of them is to resurrect the discussion that happened on YouTube years ago, not for nostalgia purposes, but to really get into the modern era of rhetoric and discussion in the great battling war of the atheists and the theists in the digital realm. So I have a bevy of interesting people here today, and I'm going to just go ahead and introduce them. First, we have Tommy from the Bronx. He is an atheist YouTuber that's been on the tubes longer than I have. He's been on forever. He does fantastic videos. We also have Steve Shives on, who is another YouTuber who has been on YouTube for quite a long time. Shayrah is also here, the lovely and beautiful Shayrah. She is also a YouTuber who is involved with atheism and politics and feminism, as is Steve Shives. We also have Noah on, which is I'm so happy that Noah is here. Noah is one of the people that inspired me to make better videos back in the day because my tired arguments just wouldn't work against his rhetoric. It was fantastic, and we're happy to have him here. It's formerly Veritas 48. And we also have Grappling Ignorance, as you can see by the non-face that is in the window there. Grappling Ignorance is one of my best friends, and he has been on YouTube for almost as long as I have. He makes fantastic videos. And last but not least, we have Dark Matter 2525. Also, his other channel is Dark Antics, where he does more commentary on issues that are important to him. Most of everyone on this panel doesn't really need an introduction. I'm happy to have all of you all here, and thanks for joining me on the first episode. So a couple of things before we get started. Number one, this show is not a family show. Just wanted to make sure that everybody in the audience knew that, they understood that. Of course, you are able to talk to your children about what's appropriate for them to watch online, and certainly we'd love to have them watch, but please, anybody who's under the age of 18, make sure that there's some adult supervision there because we
Tommy
get...
from the Bronx is here.
Yeah,
That's
Tommy
why.
from the Bronx is here, and we say fuck a lot. We talk about sex. You're gonna hear about cum shots, and this will get crazy. All right, so just make sure that if you don't want your children watching, tune out now. And okay, I've given you that chance.
Maybe they should have tuned out before you dropped fucking cum shots.
cum shot.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean,
Now
I
your
wanted,
kids can leave.
you have to give them a reason to leave.
Oh, he's
So-
serious.
So yeah, Shayrah's already gone. She's like, "Fuck this! I'm out of here."
That's probably a reason to stay.
Yeah, I would say that that's true too. So, one other thing about the show, a couple of other things about the show, and I'm sorry that this is such a drawn-out introduction, but we don't suppress any opinions here. On my show, we listen to what people have to say, and we crush their tiny nuts into oblivion with our metaphorical boots if their ideas are bad. This show is a place where bad ideas come to die. We will respect that. We will have integrity as a show. Nobody is above having their ideas criticized and being able to grow, both intellectually and socially. So
So it's like G-Man show.
this is not a safe zone where everybody's sucking each other's dick. This is gonna be at times a heated environment that people are gonna have to sometimes be made to feel a little bit uncomfortable. But I just didn't want to have a lackey show on here where everybody's just hunky-dory and it's fucking sunshine and rainbows for everyone. So that is a very important part of this show. The format... I'm
I
sorry.
really wish everyone could just suck my dick.
Yeah, well, we'll do that after. But
Okay, all right.
The after show.
so yeah, that'll be the after show where everybody lines up to suck Dark Matter's dick. Anyway,
That's a long line.
yeah, it is a long line. That's true.
Isn't that a Dark Matter comment section?
Is there a Dark Matter? Wow.
I thought there was a place for that already.
I'm sure there is.
There's a lot of people in the chat saying Steve Shives blocks everybody. Well, he hasn't blocking me yet, and that's probably the miracle right there. So.
Wait, hold on a second. Also, there's another thing about my show. We're not going to block dissenting opinion. If you have a comment that you want to be seen, then ask about it. I will always have the chat open, and I will never block or kick people from the chat. So sometimes it's going to scroll a little fast because you have the 40-60 internet quotient of idiotic fucking morons there that will put in comments that take precedent over the real comments. But just keep trying, and people on the panel will be looking at the chat. Everybody has the link to the chat, so they'll be able to read it at any time. But we won't be blocking. We won't be removing people. So say what's on your mind, and maybe it'll get into the show, and it'll go around the room, and we'll talk about it. The format of the show for the rest of the shows that will come every week is that we're going to talk about some news stories that occurred during the course of the week, but there's going to be one main topic that we're going to discuss, and we're going to have some discussion on that main topic, and there'll probably be offshoots of that topic as well. So we're going to entertain those offshoots. It's going to be a free marketplace of ideas. So that is all about the intro that I wanted to do. Does anybody have anything to add? You fuckers.
No, we don't want to bore them even more, so go ahead.
Oh, I'm boring them. All right, Tommy, we'll just get you on there. Everything will be just fine. So, and we're also waiting for Profmth. He's having some internet problems tonight, and he's trying frantically to get on the show.
He actually said his internet was being a cunt.
Yes, he said his internet was being a giant cunt. Or what was his exact word? This is funny as shit.
Cunt mode?
Cunt mode, right. My internet is in cunt mode. All right, so we're going to have a discussion about a main topic that we're going to do. But we're going to talk about some news stories that occurred in the atheist and secular community before we get to our main topic, and then we'll just have discussion about that. And we're going to have discussion about each news topic as we go along. The first news topic that I wanted to talk about is that there was a lawmaker in Arizona who has been barred from giving invocations prior to the House meeting. And the article reads, an atheist lawmaker in Arizona has been barred from delivering an invocation from the State House floor after fellow elected officials mandated that sessions can only open with prayers that invoke a higher power. State Rep Juan Mendez, the Democratic state representative from Tempe, Arizona, made headlines in 2013 when he opened an afternoon session in the State House with an invocation that honored his secular humanism, and now he's since been barred from giving any invocations on the Senate floor. This is one of two stories that have to do with atheism and politics that we're going to talk about today. Richie, what do you think about? I know that we've had these discussions about invocations or giving speeches that are secular in nature before chamber meetings or other state-sponsored events. What do you think about that in general? What do you think about being barred from being able to do that?
I think it's really strange that we make a big deal out of like invocations or these things that are basically formalities, right? So whatever meeting it is, I've been to, living in the South, I've been to every school board meeting that I've attended, and pretty much every athletic banquet and all these things that take place in public schools or for a public school division. Pretty much everyone is opened with a prayer. And you extend that to congressional things. These opening things are just formalities. You could take that entire invocation, you could take the entire invocation section away, and the entire rest of the meeting would still go on and nothing would be different. So it's strange to me that it becomes such a big deal that we have one, and that it seems to me like desperation when it's so important to us that it deals with religion. It has to invoke a higher power. When we do this little thing before this secular government that doesn't necessarily, it seems like, and if I'm correct, the article said that included moments of silence. You couldn't just have a moment of silence, right? It had to do something that invokes a prayer. And they don't pray every day at the start of my public school, but they do have a moment of silence, which I think would be it's a pretty good deal. You know, you take a moment of silence, you can do whatever you want with that. You can just chill for a moment. You can pray in your head if you want to. You can think about something that's important. You can gather your thoughts for the day. A moment of silence seems okay to me, but all of it's just a formality, and that we make a big deal out of it, or that it has to be, oh no, you can't have something that doesn't invoke a higher power at this point, seems desperate and sad.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Freedom from Religion Foundation, this is one of the things that they jump the shark on, is and they attack, you know, and say that this is a slight on humanity. It's ridiculously discriminatory against atheists, and they make this huge fucking deal about it, when I think it's kind of like a mountain out of a molehill situation. Does anybody disagree?
Well, I would add it probably goes even further than that, right? So if I'm reading the article correct, it says that that prayer to them is a solemn request or guidance, for guidance and help from God. And by God, right, they're smuggling in a very Western monotheistic conception of God. So not only does it discriminate against like secular folk, it also discriminates against people who pray, who don't actually hold that specific sort of conception of a higher power. So that's kind of interesting.
Sure. So would you say that it would be better for everybody to move into the direction of a moment of silence, so each individual person could reflect based on what their own personal convictions are, and if they're an atheist, or if they have a particular theistic belief,
sure,
that they can just, you know, think in silence for a moment. Yeah, I don't like how it's been lauded in the news, especially on the atheist side. You're gonna find this is true with me a lot. I'm gonna have a lot of criticism for the FFRF. I don't like a lot of the things that they do. I don't think that their activism is helping in any way. I think it's making the issue more polarizing. So
a couple years ago, I actually did protest in Rowlett, Texas, because they were not allowing atheists to do invocations. There was a whole bunch of us that went out there to voice our opinions on this and try to ensure that people were able to have their rights to have different kinds of invocations. And that was the whole point, was it's supposed to be any different kind of group can come in and do an invocation. But I will say this, there were some awesome people that spoke, and there were some atheists that said some really, really fucking stupid shit. And they were yelling, screaming, or acting like dipshits, comparing it to really things that had nothing to do with the invocations. So I think it's important that we allow people to have their voice, but it's also important that when we are going and talking to our officials, that we have some kind of respect and understand how the law works and know how to speak our minds properly to these people. And I understand the importance of the firebrand side of things, but in certain situations we really gotta try to speak like human beings to people. So that was my only criticism of that particular protest that we did.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's worthy. Does anybody have anything else to say about this?
It reminds me a lot of like having In God We Trust on the money. You know, like yeah, I would like to change that. Like, I don't think it belongs there. You know, I do think that's a violation of separation of church and state. But at the same time, is it really affecting my life? Is that really like a super important issue? It does symbolize things like the violation of church and state in principle is a big deal, and we should work to, you know, eliminate those. It's not in line with the principles of a secular government, but yeah, is it really something that is it a hill that I'm really willing to die on as an atheist or as a promoter of secularism? Probably not. I mean, I think in terms of like activism that does more harm than good. And I would much rather, in terms of how atheists and non-religious folks relate to religious folks, I think it's much more important to push for cultural changes, to push for raising visibility of atheists, changing the image that people have of atheists, giving people more diverse, positive role models for atheism, instead of always thinking that we're just angry people, who are just very aggressive and very partisan. And I really don't get what the problem is with a moment of silence either. I mean, when I got married, except for the fact that the wedding was in a church and officiated by a Lutheran minister, it was pretty much a secular ceremony. And our big compromise was the minister who married us said, well, I'll agree to do it the way you asked to do it if I can just have one prayer. And we said, well, what if we don't have a prayer but we have a moment of silence? And she said yes. So if it was good enough for the Lutheran minister who married me, I don't see why it's not good enough for whoever else.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yes, please, Richie.
So I do have to disagree that it's tantamount to just having something like "In God We Trust" on the money, because it's not that it's just prayers get said before government meetings. Like, that doesn't bother me. But in this particular case, we're talking about banning people from saying something before a government meeting that doesn't involve religion. So it's not like we have this time when we have an introductory talk and sometimes people pray during that time, or some people invoke a higher power and they believe that God's going to come help them run the government. That I wouldn't really have much of I wouldn't make much of a deal over. But when we say, no, we have to do that, and you're not allowed to say something at this secular government meeting without praying, I think that's a bigger deal than just having "In God We Trust" on money.
Yeah, I think that's true too. I think that when there is that visceral response of you can't do something, this is disallowed, rather than saying something is kind of blasé and you can take it or leave it. I think it's more important. But I would also argue that it being on "In God We Trust" being on money kind of is the same way. We don't have any control over that, and it's there without our consent, or without our faith, or without our belief in it. It's there, and we kind of are subjected to it without our consent. So I understand where the argument's coming from both sides. And there was an interesting story last week that I actually did on a show. That was a woman who was who wrote it was this professor of theology somewhere, and she wrote an essay saying that the pagan iconography that was on our dollar bill was much more important than "In God We Trust," and that everybody should just fucking relax for a minute and chill out. And I've never seen the argument taken in that direction, so it's strange. Anybody else have anything to add?
Just general bitching, like how can you stop anybody from praying? No, if somebody wanted to put a stop to the invocation, what you're doing is you're putting a stop of them making a show of it, which they shouldn't be doing anyway if they're Christians. But I mean, anybody can pray. You can pray anytime you want, and I don't get this idea of this need to make a big spectacle out of it. It doesn't appeal to me. I'm not. Oh man, my kid's turning on toys. I'm sorry about that. I'm just gonna mute and try to get him to stop. He just. Never mind.
Hold on, Ryan. Okay.
That was awesome, by the way.
Yeah, it was. All right, so moving on to the next story, and it has to do with the first, just atheists in politics. Now that we have a Democratic socialist running on the Democratic ticket, people are asking what kind of negativity is attached to the word socialist. And it turns out in some preliminary polling that people would rather an atheist be in office than a Democratic socialist. So, fucking A, we're not on the bottom of the list anymore. But what do you think about being an atheist in politics and the discussion now that being a socialist is more negative, or is seen to be more negative than than being an atheist?
Can I start?
Yeah, please.
So my husband actually ran for office as an open atheist in Texas. And one of the weird things that we found out, because we've seen these polls time and time again, first off, we've seen tons of people posting stuff about how you can't run for office as an atheist in Texas, which is complete horseshit. You can run and you can be an elected official. So if anybody tells you that there are states where you can't do that, that is wrong. The law does allow for atheists to run for office in these states. But the other thing that is a misconception is that people would somehow be against the atheist part. I can at least say that in an extremely, extremely red district where there's only been a Republican there, the same exact guy forever, he's had no opponents for years. We ran and we got 20% of the vote, and most people did not give a flying fuck. In fact, there were a lot of Republicans that even liked his message because he was speaking about the actual problems. He wasn't focusing on atheism. He was focusing on fracking. He was focusing on the issues of the guy who was running things. He's paid off corporate shill. So so because he was focusing on the right and proper things and wasn't just going atheist, 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 people don't care about that. In fact, I can't tell you how many people came up to us and said, yeah, whatever, the atheism thing. So what is your opinion about the infrastructure and the roads deteriorating? What is your opinion about our water supply getting poisoned by fracking? So yeah, if people just understood that, those polls, yeah, they do give you some information, but they're not quite accurate. People don't necessarily go by your label if you're kicking ass and wanting to take names. So don't let it hold you back from running for office.
I wonder though, Shayrah, if like we took Daniel and threw him up on a stage in front of, I don't know, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and all the issues are being talked about, everything's going good, and then someone brings up, you know, the idea that he's an atheist and actually challenges him on it and talks to him about it. Do you think that focusing on that one issue, even for a small amount of time, to a large audience would...
It could possibly, it could possibly veer people off, but I think that if you know how to rebut people pretty well, you can veer it back over and be like, hey, I don't think my religious opinion matters, and I know that I know what Daniel would answer. He'd talk about JFK. A lot of people were hammering him about Catholicism when he was running, and he made it to presidency. So if you know how to just say, hey, look, these are the issues at hand, and we shouldn't be focusing on that, then you can command that audience. And he has spoken in front of large audiences about stuff, but they were more concerned about him being openly bisexual. So that was kind of a big deal to people for some reason. For some reason, his sexuality was more of a point than the atheism thing. So.
You know, something else to consider too when you compare atheism to socialism is that even though there are a lot of people that have a very negative opinion of atheists and atheism, and even though there are a lot of misconceptions about atheism and atheists out there, socialism has been the target of pretty much a 50 or 60 year, you know, scare campaign in the United States, where people have been conditioned, you know, for their entire lives to view socialism as, you know, as analogous to communism, and you know, it's just the most evil, horrible thing. And you know, if someone runs for office as a socialist, they're basically running to set themselves up as a dictator, and they're going to take away your rights and take away your property, and it's going to ruin everything. And even though atheists have it bad a lot of times in terms of public image, I don't know if we have it quite that bad. You know, although Bernie Sanders is doing, I think, a bit to rehabilitate that, you know, just by kind of not making a big deal out of it. You know,
well, it's the same as. No, go ahead.
I think that the stigmatization of atheists has piggybacked sort of on the stigmatization of communists, because people so often relate the two, even though, you know, they can be completely separate.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, for a lot of people, you know, I think Archie Bunker used to say it on All in the Family, like pinko commie atheist is always, if it was just one single term, you know. But yeah, I think Bernie Sanders is fixing that a little bit, you know, because he always makes sure to say, you know, I'm a democratic socialist. You know, for me, socialism means taking care of people from the bottom to the top. You know, he explains about the many important institutions in our society already that we take for granted. that are socialist in nature. So I mean, there's a little bit of pushback. I don't think socialism is quite as demonized now as it used to be, but apparently, it is still, there are a lot of people that sort of just react to it instinctively, like, oh no, not socialism.
Well, I think it's a younger thing, though. I think the younger people don't care. The older people still.
Yeah,
that's true. But also, I mean, when you say socialism, a lot of people think communism. They think they're not talking about socialism. You're talking about communism, and they think it's automatically bad and against the American way. But in both situations, I think for atheists and for socialists, education is the key to helping people understand what's going on there. I love the meme with the snowy road and the fucking snow plow, and it says, "Get ready, socialist snow plows are coming." That always makes me laugh. If people would really understand what socialism meant, they would probably have a different idea, or a different opinion of it, I guess.
It sounds like something a baby-eating atheist would say to me.
Yeah, and babies are delicious.
Yeah.
I have had
actual baby
back ribs.
All right, I'm going to kick my kid out of the room before he hears this. He's going to get scared. Well, what do you guys think about the idea that maybe there already are a lot of atheists in office, and they just know that religion is a good tool to manipulate people with?
I actually know for a fact that there are atheists in office that hide their atheism. I've met a couple of them.
Wasn't there a big story about this with Obama having to be more evangelical, and that he was secular before he took office in order to win the evangelical voters and support from them while he was in the presidency, that he decided that he was
I still think he's a Christian, but I think he might have exaggerated it more for political reasons.
I remember people were outraged when he just said something like, oh gosh, I don't remember what it was now. Maybe one of you can help me out. Where he was talking about where he had the audacity to include non-believers in a list of people.
Right. This was after his one of his gun violence speech. I think it was Sandy Hook when he was talking, when he first mentioned it, talking about non-believers and how people were outraged about it. I love outrage. I think it's so fucking silly.
Well, a lot of people don't remember this, and I don't blame him because he said so many horrible things. But I mean, George W. Bush once included non-believers in a list of, I mean, he never made a big point of it because obviously he was much more interested in catering to Christians. But I think it was in one of his post 9/11 speeches where he was talking about, the importance of coming together and unity, and he mentioned, we need to come together, people of all faiths and people of no faith. And for some reason, I don't remember the right-wing folks losing it when their guy included people of no faith in the idea of unity. But when the Democrat, brings it up, all of a sudden it's a huge deal.
And is it true that his dad, George Bush Sr., said that atheists should lose their citizenship? I seem to recall something like that.
He did.
He said that he said you couldn't be a true American.
Yeah, he basically said we weren't basically citizens, which is really strange to me because I would think that, I guess when it comes to Islam or when it comes to atheism, it's just one of those easy targets. Not a lot of people understand it. They're very ignorant, and they have a lot of misconceptions and stereotypes that are attached to those terms, and so they just, it's an easy target to say and get applause from, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we shall see. Let's see. Okay, anybody else have anything to say about that? No. All right. Moving along. The last story was in the Chicago Tribune last week, and it was an atheist who wrote an essay about not being able to shake off God. And I'll save this one for last because it's probably going to have the most discussion attached to it, about how we as atheists or non-believers, whatever we are, hold on to the Christian traditions that we hold on. I still love Christmas. I love the time of year. We mask it however we can with saying that it's not we're not celebrating the birth of Christ. We're celebrating this pagan holiday where we all get together and have a good time. But still, even being an atheist all my life, I've never had religion. I've never deconverted. I still obey mores and folkways of society that are traditionally based in religious dogma. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I wanted to see if there was anybody that's on the panel that struggles with the integrated, dogma into their personality, into their character, into their being, and if they struggle with it, or if they don't care about it. What's your opinion? Noah, I'll start with Noah.
Yeah, it's such a large issue, right?
Right.
I may hold a different view than maybe some of the other people in here. Yeah, I mean, I still am trying to shake off God in many different ways. I'm one of the few atheists that would say I kind of still want to believe in God. I know that sounds kind of weird, and even intellectually I don't like saying that, but there is a certain degree of comfort in having all the answers handed to you, and having this one canon that tells you the way life's supposed to go. Provides a lot of good stuff that you need to get through life in a very in a way that's meaningful. So having those things assigned is hard to shake, right? Once you lose it, there's still, for some people like myself, going to be a time where you still want some of that stuff back, but you know better. So for me, it's been like 3 years or so, and I'm still there. I still find myself occasionally praying, which is kind of weird. I know nothing's happening, like I intellectually know nothing is going on, but every once in a while, I'm still trying to shake that stuff off. But I think even in a deeper way, look, here we are having a conversation on video discussing some religious topics, religious stuff and politics, and so much of, I think, who we actually are, the things we talk about, our interactions, what we do on a Wednesday night, is centered around a culture that is heavily invested in the idea of God. So to a certain degree, no matter what we try to do, I think our identity as atheists will always sort of have to do with God, right? We may not believe in God, but our conversations, the things that interest us, our dialogues with the culture at large will always be around the topic of God, or at least for the near future. So there's different ways we could maybe describe shaking off God culturally, shaking God off in the various topics that we discuss. Morality, for example. Are we still clinging on to conceptions of morality that are inherently found in the Judeo-Christian tradition, for example? I mean, there's a lot of different ways we could cut this, but experientially, I'll just start it that way. For me,
that's the best way, I think.
Yeah, for me, it's I have no qualms about being honest about it. It's still, I still want to believe. I have that Mulder syndrome. I don't want to, but I do. It's kind of weird. I'm the opposite of Christopher Hitchens, right? Christopher Hitchens said he really just doesn't want there to be a God. Not that that's a reason to disbelieve in God, but if he had a choice, he would say he doesn't. That he wouldn't want God to exist. I kind of do. I mean, I think it would be kind of horrific if the God of Christianity existed. Like, I know that up here, but a lot of the comfort that came with that, intellectual comfort, sort of having my place in the cosmos assigned to me. If you're in that for the majority of your life, to lose that is very, very difficult. And so there's a certain sense in which that comfort is something you're going to yearn for, even when it's gone.
I mean, it's an easy place to retreat when it's provided so much comfort for you for so long. It's easy to go back there and say, okay, I'm safe now. I'm back to the area where I know best. I don't think anybody else on the panel. I think everyone else on the panel is deconverted. Am I wrong in that?
No, I've never believed in God.
Okay, so what do you think, dark matter, about?
I'm on board with Noah. I would want there to be a God. I really don't believe there is one. I think that it would be nice if, because I've had a lot of people that I've loved die over the years, and I would love to think that we could go on until we decide that we don't want to exist anymore. Just coping with non-existence, with I'm gonna die, or my loved one's gonna die, but we want to go on. We want to stick around longer. I mean, it's a really tough feeling. There's nothing you can do about it. that's it. You're gonna die, and that's scary. You know, it's scary sometimes. So yeah, I would like there to be a God, but I don't think there is, and I think that there's immense value in knowing the truth, you know, and accepting that.
Sure, that's the tough part about it, though, too, right? I mean, if the Judeo-Christian God existed, I think we would have cause to be extremely concerned about the way that our lives were going. But wouldn't it be interesting if there was some other deity that created all of this, and maybe that didn't have a plan, just kind of crapped it out and went on its way? I think it would. I would love to know it. I would love to understand it. But that's the scientist in me too. So it's kind of where the two ideologies intermingle. The scientist says, "Show me. You know, I want to see it. I would be intrigued by it. I mean, anything past our solar system, I'm intrigued by anyway. So if we somehow found that there was evidence for a godlike being, I would be all over it like flies on shit. I would love that. I would eat it up. But I would eat it up because of my love and appreciation for the scientific method. So." It's an interesting crossroads between where theists and atheists have that same kind of notion into the infinity of nothing. So
for you, it would be a very, very interesting truth that you would discover.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like all truths are. For me, anyway. Well, some of them are more interesting than others, or more exciting than others, of course. But when I remember from a very young age, I would disassemble everything in my life. I would take it apart. I would see how it worked. I would make it better. I would improve its efficiency. I would improve its aesthetic. I would do something else to it that could improve upon it. But in order to do that, I had to understand it. Learning how glass is made, something simple, something easy. We drive on roads every day. Well, how does that fucking happen? How is a road put down anyway? I have to know the answers to these questions, especially with things that I directly interact with on a daily basis. I have to know, even if the ideas are incredibly complex, like light rays or particle physics and those kind of things, down to the atomic level. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. And when we make discoveries with regard to stuff like that, I'm in, I'm hooked. That's my thing.
Yeah, I was kind of the opposite. If my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figure broke, like if its arm broke off, I didn't try to fix it or figure it. I just cried. That's all. I just sat there crying. I didn't really try to discover anything more than that, to be honest with you.
That kind of makes sense. Anybody else want to weigh in on this?
I can sort of relate to what Dark Matter said, because I have sort of a divided opinion of it. I mean, there's the really selfish side of me that wishes there was a God, just so I could have some hope for there being an afterlife and I wouldn't have to fear death. That's a big thing for me too. I'm not looking forward to not existing anymore. And if there could be and that was the last part of my belief that I let go. I clung to the hope that there would be an afterlife, that there would be something to carry on after this life was over. For a long time after I pretty much had come to the conclusion that there probably wasn't a God. So there's that selfish part of me that wishes I could go on, that wishes I would get to see my dead relatives again, But then there's the side of me that has embraced the sort of godless universe since I embraced atheism and sort of decided that I wasn't a believer anymore. And, there are certain things that are truths or at least pretty close to truths that, we know about ourselves and our place in the universe and the nature of the universe that you don't really get from most theistic religions. The idea that we aren't put in a place by a deity, that our destinies aren't laid out for us, our purpose isn't assigned to us, our morals aren't written down and just sort of handed to us.
You have to work for it.
Yeah, these are all things we have to figure out for ourselves, and I've come to appreciate the beauty in that and the importance of that and the meaning of that making your own meaning is where meaning comes from, not having it assigned to you. And I've come to really love that and really appreciate that and find that really beautiful. So there's that, the sort of, this more philosophical, beautiful part of living in a universe where we are on our own. We have to take care of each other. We have to find purpose and meaning through our work and through our relationships and through our lives, that I find so much more meaningful and fulfilling than what I got from religion. But then there's the other half that's like, yeah, but damn it, I don't want to die.
Yeah.
I have a really strange. I must be very different than all of you. I don't have this fear of death. It'll be the same as before I wasn't living. It's nothing, and it doesn't bother me in the slightest. I think that's actually what makes being alive right now so fucking beautiful. Like, this is the only time we have to do the things that we're doing and to make our dent, and that's always fire under my ass to fucking do something and to try to make the world a better place for my daughter. My way of living forever, which I would never want to do, which is why actually not believing anymore was refreshing. But my way of living forever is I passed on my genes. My daughter, she's practically a replica of me, except she's Shayrah 2.0. She's much more intelligent and stronger and better than I could ever possibly try to be, and she's only 12. So I know that she's going to do well with those genes and pass them on to other people, and I'm good. I'm satisfied. I've done what I needed to do, and now all I can do is try to make sure that the world is as best as I can make it before I do leave. But
I have a similar viewpoint. That I used to say that I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of living, or living well, living the good life. I was worried that I would fuck it up at some point, and I'm still worried that I would fuck it up at some point. It's one of the reasons why I don't do some of the things that I can do, because I'm still worried about how my actions are going to affect the greater population at large. So, I don't really have any fear of death. I experienced that death moment, and and everybody who's listening in the chat, please don't get any ideas from this, but it was beautiful. It was fucking amazing. And I wasn't afraid. But it's much more difficult to live and live well and try to do right by other people and try to sort out that morality. And it's necessary. It's a requisite of being a human being and interacting with other people on the planet, I think.
I had a couple of times where I thought I was gonna die on a parachute jump. And it was fucking horrifying, so I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah, I think I probably would have had a different idea if I wasn't lying on the floor and my body was just stopping. If I was plummeting to the earth, I think there would probably be a significant amount of terror that would occur if that was happening to me. So yeah, I'm with you, 100%.
Yeah, there's a sense in which it's kind of irrational, right, to fear non-existence. And it's like, how do you fear, like, before you were born? It just, to a certain degree, it doesn't make sense. But I still remember, the first time I got on the freeway after I deconverted, and I remember going, 70 miles an hour in the carpool thinking, all I need to do is, barely turn this wheel left, and I don't exist anymore, probably. And I just remember thinking to myself, well, shit, I got a lot to do. There's a lot I better think about, right? If it all really does end with, a couple inches on a steering wheel going that fast, if that's really the entirety of my existence, man, that changes a lot of things. Something as simple as that. I think that, deconversion is, for me, it was very awful. I think for most people it's awful. It's very hard. But you come out of it having to do a lot of work, having to ask yourself really important questions, forming your own sorts of cannons, right? Destroying one cannon to raise another one up, or maybe no cannons, right? What sorts of systems of morality or of meaning make the most sense to you without someone telling you, what to believe in this book, right? There's so many things that look different in the world when you step outside and you're an atheist for the first time. And it's not all good, right? Let's be honest here. So if you've ever deconverted, there is a really fucking hard time with it. A lot of it. There were times where I didn't sleep for days. I just could not sleep. I was scared to death. I thought every time I closed my eyes to fall asleep, I was going to die. Which probably is indicative of some other weird issues with me, but certainly it was very difficult because I was like, what the fuck do I do now? How do I even live if everything is stripped from me? My glass that I look through to see the world is completely stripped of me. So it's, I don't know, like everything in life that's really meaningful, it's horrifying and beautiful at the same time, right? And I don't know, be poetic. It's like having a kid, right? It's like, oh God, Jesus, that's nasty, but it's also like the most awesome thing, right? I mean, that's kind of a way to approach it. Anyway, yeah, I'm actually still one of those people that's kind of scared of death. I think for me, I'm more scared of how I'm going to die than the idea of death itself, right? Like non-existence, when I ponder it, doesn't seem that bad, but like being eaten by a shark seems horrifying to me, like that.
Okay, I do have those fears.
Yeah.
I do not want to be burned or drown. That's a huge fear of mine. But that's what makes me overly cautious. But I've been that way my whole life, where I've been overly cautious about how I'll die. I don't want to suffer, and this is one of the reasons why. A big part of my activism is about letting people die when they need to or want to, when they're in a lot of pain or they're suffering. I think that we need to be allowed to go when we want to go, instead of holding on for our family members and suffering for months or years or whatever. I'm a huge advocate of being able to die when you need to, so, because I don't want to go out in a horrible, painful way.
I mean, I think that's normal, though, right? I mean,
I hope so.
I mean, if you're just like, no, I don't care, burn me alive, that's fine, drown me, whatever. It's death. It's all the same. I think it's normal to not want to get shot and bleed out, or be drowned or be eaten by a fucking shark. Yeah, it'd probably be a terrifying way to go. But the idea of death, I think we can all agree, is just going into non-being, and that the idea of that being peaceful, I think we could handle a whole lot better than if we were shot in the face or some kind of other horrible thing.
Can I ask Noah a question that might veer off a little bit, but not too much?
Yeah, of course, veer, it's fine.
So you were talking about a deconversion, and I remember my deconversion was rough, like really, really rough. But you did your deconversion on YouTube, arguing with atheists on YouTube in a way. Like, was there any added hardships to doing it publicly almost?
Well, so I didn't actually deconvert publicly. I think some of the work that produced that deconversion was certainly during my time on YouTube. During the initial, like, if you would have asked me that same question a couple years ago, I would have said I just sort of happened to wake up one day and find myself out to sea, like believing that all my views were sort of I was less confident in all those views. But after thinking about it, I think my time on YouTube actually played a much larger role than I maybe originally gave it credit for. I think intellectually a lot of the things I said just I wasn't really confident in over time. I think that those things were demonstrably false. A lot of the stuff that I presented, people showed that to me very clearly, and so I was faced with either changing my beliefs or trying to find ways to dance around what I sort of was realizing was true. But so I think part of it is certainly was public, but the staying up all night, freaking out thing happened quite a while after I got off of YouTube. But the good thing was a lot of the friends I made, it's going to sound unbelievably rainbowish and happy, but a lot of the friends I made on YouTube, a lot of the atheists, I actually reached out to. Once I was off YouTube for a while, and I decided, I woke up and I was like, I really am a non-Christian, and then I really am an atheist. So I reached out to Profmth. I was friends with him. I reached out to Adam, Urban Elf, Scott, Theoretical Bullshit, and I was like, hey, like what do I do? Like what the hell am I doing right now? Like I don't know what to do, right? And so I ended up really working in my favor, having really intelligent, very nice people help me through that, right? Now, can you imagine if I would have called G-Man? That would have sucked. Yeah. Yeah.
You asked people how to atheist? You actually were like, how do you do this?
Yeah, I swear to God, I was like, here I am. Here's what I believe now. And I think working through those things was somewhat personal. I mean, I kept a lot of that interaction myself. I read a hell of a lot. Apologetics is really good at bastardizing secular readings. Like, reading philosophy as an apologist is basically what can you take out and cherry pick in order to make some other point that you have ready to go. And so I basically learned, I actually really studied philosophy for the first time on my own without bullshitting, and actually started soaking things in that I felt were either things that resonated with me or they didn't, without having to sort of filter them through a Christian framework. So a lot of that was personal, very exciting. It was probably the most exciting time of my life, being able to be like, wow, I'm actually a moral nihilist. Like, 8 months ago, I was a Christian, you know. So, so the part of that was kind of public. I think everyone kind of saw me. There were a lot of people, and maybe even Josh was one of these people. But I remember a lot of people were like, yeah, give him like 5 years, he'll probably be an atheist. And I was like,
I was.
Bastards. But I was a Christian at the time, so I was like, you son of a gun, like. You know.
Yeah, well, I mean, to your credit, it was the only argument I ever had against you that was that had any merit. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I hope that answers your question, Shayrah.
Yeah, I mean, I find it interesting because I actually went through my deconversion because of YouTube, like fully. But I wasn't a YouTuber. I was watching, well, most specifically Profmth. I was watching a lot of his videos, and I mean, I was watching a lot of people's videos. I was arguing with people for years. It was a very long process, but eventually that was when I realized I was an atheist, because I was after watching a million of his videos and realizing how bullshit the Bible was in a lot of ways. I was like, oh shit, oh no, and it was a scary moment, and I did not know how to atheist either. I was trying to figure it out, trying to understand myself, and I was reaching out to other YouTubers, but they weren't hearing me out, and until I actually started posting videos, that was when people were actually interacting with me, because they could see my face and know who I was, or at least see my arguments. So, and I was able, at Reason Rally, I was able to meet Profmth and be like, hey, you were the final nail in the coffin for me, and he was very proud of that. But and I gave him a big hug. But for me, it was like being free of a lot of horrible bullshit that was hurting me, a lot of guilt, a lot of pain. So mine was a relief, but it was also lonely as fuck. I was all alone in a dark place. So I had to find all the little lights in atheism, which were you guys, and then I felt better about it. But I don't know. I just found it interesting that both of us, YouTube probably had an influence on it. Sure. But yours was I know a lot of people were questioning, like, where's Veritas 488? Where did he go?
Yeah, and I think especially leaving Christianity, it's very normal to fight with guilt and fight with. A large part of Christianity is, damn you, sinner, bad person. Look at you. You're by default, something's wrong with you, right? And if you have a personality that's more prone to take those sorts of things to heart, like I do, really kind of fucks you up. And you realize that once you're out of it, like, man, really kind of hard on myself. So Christianity can exacerbate in many ways. Whether this is consistent with the Bible or not, I really don't care. But it can certainly exacerbate personality characteristics like that. If you're hard on yourself and you're a Christian, life's not going to be very easy.
That's one of the main threads that I've heard from people who have deconverted. In having discussion with Matt Slick's daughter, she had a very similar kind of experience, and it was interesting to see what she had to go through during the course of her deconversion. And she still, I think we had a discussion about this a while back, maybe it was on the Scratch Pad, Noah, that she, I mean, it might be verbatim what you two were talking about. I mean, it was almost exactly the same story. So did
we Jacqueline Glenn it? Is that what we did?
We probably did. Or I probably did. Yeah, so inadvertently. Sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to be a douchebag plagiarist. So.
I didn't mean to plagiarize. Although it's very well possible that I talked about it before her, because I talked about my deconversion in a video probably in 2011, 2010.
Oh yeah, definitely before her then. Definitely before her.
So she plagiarized me, and I'm going to go after her now.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. And go after Jacqueline Glenn too, just for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
Just be
I mean,
like,
I'm
what
sure
the fuck?
She said something similar.
I can't believe you talked about this shit, and I talked about it fucking 2 years ago. You shithead.
I had a question for Noah, and I totally understand if you don't want to get into this, but from what I remember, you were in a relationship, like you were married, right? Or still are, I don't know, but when you had your channel and all, but how did this affect that relationship?
How dare you ask me? I'm just kidding. No, without going... So I'm going to keep some of it private, but I will say that...
Don't reveal too much, please.
I know. Like, I'm going to pull out my wife's social security number and be like, here.
No, please do not do that. Thank you.
No, to be honest with you, I thought my marriage was over. I just thought it was done. I was like, well, you know, I really believe this now, and well, shit. Didn't turn out that way. I told my wife. Ended up actually making things. It actually ended up saving my marriage in a lot of ways. I'll just say it like it is. It opened up an entire new realm of things to talk about, ways to kind of, you know, I don't know. We got married very young, and we were both evangelical Christians when we got married, and that's not exactly the smartest thing to do. I'll just put it that way. And then when my deconversion happened, it allowed us to sort of talk about things in a much more open way than I think we were used to, even as Christians. You know, Christianity, like most religions, most Western religions, confines you in many different ways, right? It confines relationships, it confines personalities, it's really good at rigidity, right? And so breaking out of that and being you know, very direct with my wife about my experience, my deconversion allowed us to sort of work through a whole bunch of other issues that we had going on in our marriage in a completely different context. So long story short, it actually was incredibly beneficial to my marriage, which kind of shocked the hell out of me, right? Like, here I am, and I remove God from the context of my life, and like my marriage gets better. It's like that was just one of the first things that sort of happened that was a positive thing with me when I deconverted. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
You guys are absolutely adorable, just FYI.
Why, thank you. Thank you.
Can anybody hear me yet?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Like,
yeah.
Because I really wanted you to talk about some of the things we were talking about. I was like, where the fuck is grappling ignorance at?
I like
and you're over there going crazy trying to get your audio to work.
Bullet points written down.
Wait, grappling ignorance. Were you making fun of somebody for having technical difficulties before the show started?
He was. That's true.
You were calling
was
man?
Was that before or after the Clitty litter?
That was obviously Tommy from the Bronx. And Dark Matter, I don't think it's fair for you to levy that criticism against him when he's not here. So I'm just going to end that at that point.
Tommy keeps coming in and is getting kicked out for some reason. I don't know what the fuck is going on with his.
Yeah, I don't know. I had to switch to a different microphone because my other one's not working. So I'm sorry if you can't hear me as well. But man, is there shit to say?
Yeah, you sound great. Yeah, please add your $5 to the.
Most importantly, Noah's a dick for not trying to save his Ninja Turtle. Okay, that's on my notes here. Regardless to your competency level, you can't just give up on Michelangelo while he's lying dismembered on the floor. And I don't know if I can ever regard you in the same way again. Shayrah mentioned that running in a very red district, Daniel had got 20% of the vote in Texas, which is pretty cool, and that several people that approached her or approached them or approached him didn't really care about his atheism and were more focused on issues, and I think that's great. I don't know that that is a fair sample size to consider all of America. When we think
agree.
About, yeah, when I think that's wonderful. I'm very encouraged that that happens in Texas. But I think that when we're thinking of big picture sort of things, like it was brought up in the context of Bernie Sanders running for political office on a national scale, and also the people that are coming up and talking to a candidate about issues, I imagine probably are more concerned about actual issues. And it's great that he didn't receive the amount of maybe harassment that we were expecting. It's sad that he did receive some over bisexuality, but I just think that that's kind of, and it's also great that he's allowed to run for political office, but I also don't know that because he was able to do so in Texas, that every place that has laws on the books, every city.
They do. And I wanted to cover this, actually. I'm glad you brought it up again because I saw some people in the comments section did not fully understand this. So, yes, there are laws on the book. This happens a lot with law, but when the big courts tell you, no, that shit ain't going to fly, that shit ain't going to fly. That's how our law system works. So even if there are some really weird-ass laws that are on the books that they're not actually enforced. These are not enforceable laws. And if they tried to, we would take it to a big court and we would destroy them and destroy that law, and they wouldn't want to waste their time or their money to do that. Although it would really be powerful for atheists. We were like, gosh, if you get this and then they try to throw that law at you. This will be a fun, fucking fantastic time because we will destroy that fucking thing. Because here's the thing: when you talk about the big courts, they do overpower it. So yes, there are laws on the book. They have this with sodomy laws and other things, but they are non-enforceable laws, and that's what's important for people to understand. When you're looking at little laws, you have to look at the big picture too.
I'd also say that it's really important for people, for activists, to attack those laws, though, and to, because just because it's on the books and it's not enforceable doesn't mean that has no effect. I would argue that.
Well, the only way to do it is to run, to actually become a person in office, and then have someone go, no, we're going to go after you, and that's the only way to destroy that and squash it officially.
Well, I think that as a constituency, we can also appeal to those elected officials. I don't think that I have to go into political office to put pressure on my representatives.
Yeah, I don't know if the law can be squashed in that way. But you can talk to your officials and try to create laws, create bills. I don't know if you can talk to them about squashing them. I think it has to be something where the higher courts end up squashing it because they deem it not allowed. I wish Prof were here. He would describe it way better. He's a law professor, but because I use simpleton words. But essentially, they would need to run, get into office, and then have them go after them and try to say that it's illegal, and then it would squash the law. Because it's just not enforceable. And that's how a lot of these weird laws on the books, you'll find really strange things still on the books, but they're just not enforceable based on the Constitution. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other things that you have.
Yeah, sorry.
That you wanted to say.
On that socialist question about the fear of socialism and that sort of thing, and I think it's interesting that you brought that up in light of Sanders running. I think we may be dealing with the closest thing to an atheist candidate who doesn't like shy away from that. Somebody in the chat when that came up said that they're surprised he hasn't been directly asked about that. Jimmy Kimmel directly addressed him about that and mentioned that he is culturally Jewish, but asked him, do you believe in God? And he kind of shrugged off the question and saying that, well, there are more important things to worry about, and that he has spirituality, but his spiritual belief deals with us being in this together, and he moved on to the actual important issues. And for me, that's pretty telling. I know that he probably doesn't want to come right out and say, I don't believe in God, I'm an atheist, or anything like that. It's the spirituality shield is there to defend people from jumping on that, because labeling yourself an atheist and a socialist might be political suicide on that scale. But yeah, I think that it's interesting that we may be voting that in, and on the note of socialism, I find it strange and that and you were talking about the socialist snowplows coming. I think it's very strange to me that so much of the voting base, the Republican voting base, that is in favor of socialism when it comes to the military, and when it comes to, they're in favor of universal health care when it comes to giving it to the military, and this isn't just voting base, but also congressional representatives. They're in favor of socialism there. They're in favor of universal health care there. They're in favor of it with so many things, but then when a candidate says that they subscribe to socialism, it becomes that dirty McCarthyism style word, which is a bit of hypocrisy. If somebody else wanted to talk, please get in.
I completely agree.
I actually agree with you, but here's a funny thing that's actually occurring right now. So I don't know if you know, but my husband just joined the military. Do you remember Barking Atheist? He's joined the military now. We're living on a base. Interesting little fact, when we moved here and started getting all the benefits, we were like, this is socialism.
Yeah.
This is socialism. We get the housing, we get the health care, we get all, education, all this other stuff is covered.
Well,
it's socialist
for your
viewpoints.
Life,
well,
kind
maybe
of thing.
your life. It's not that common that not a lot of people are freaking dying from it now.
But
well, maybe
do.
suicide. But
you know,
That's a completely different topic. Like, my point is this is much like what a socialist society would more than not look like. You would be able to have housing, you'd be able to have healthcare, you'd be able to have education, and you'd be living. Basically, your paycheck is paying for food and other such things that you need, essentials. But the other weird thing that's happening, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but look at what Republicans are doing. They're cutting tons of benefits from the military. Like, it's almost every day that I see something is getting cut. Our paycheck has been getting cuts, whether it's for our children, whether it's for different housing stuff. They are cutting shit right and goddamn left. And so I have to sit here and wonder, all of these Republicans that say that they're so pro-military and so backing of military service, they are the ones that are actually cutting all these benefits and actually going after the military. Because, and this is actually, what is his name? I can't say his last name. Kasich? Who's running
Kasich.
for? Kasich? Is that?
Kasich.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, he has gone after the Republican Party for this. How dare you guys sit and say that you're there for, you know, the elderly and for the military. You guys are the ones cutting all of their benefits. You're trying to get rid of Medicaid. And he was like, you might as well just cut all taxes. Why don't you just say that? Cut all taxes, no more taxes, no more benefits. Let's just cut ourselves off completely, because that's the path they're going down right now. And it's completely against what the Republican Party has been in the past. It's completely against what anybody's been in the past. This is like a weird new thing that doesn't make any goddamn sense. We have to have some things paid for through our tax money. That's usually been what we've all been on board with, and now all of a sudden it's considered evil or bad. So I actually agree with you up to a point. I think that now there's this new Republican Party that's being created that is anti-tax, anti-paying for military, anti-paying for elderly, anti-paying for all different kinds of stuff. So.
Well, you're criticizing what Republicans are doing, and I'm referring to what Republicans are saying. And I think this puts you in the awkward position of accusing politicians of lying. And I don't know if you're prepared to defend that. I think Tommy's back.
Oops.
Maybe.
Tommy, are you back?
I keep getting booted.
What is it saying when it's booting you?
It doesn't say anything. All I see is my screen flickering and flickering.
I think your computer's broken, Tommy.
Is dark
My
matter
fucking balls are broken.
Yes,
some operating
definitely breaking your balls.
Yeah, some operating systems can't handle me. So yep, there it goes.
Yeah, there he goes. Yeah, that happens sometimes. Apparently, testicle volume is a factor. So, grappling. Did you have anything else to add in your hiatus from the show?
Yeah. Do you want God to exist is like a really big concept, and thinking about it and all the things there are to say and the thought that would go into it, I think I just have to make a video about that. It's a really good topic, and I'm glad you guys, you people, were able to talk about it, and I found your commentary interesting. But there's a bunch of shit to say about that. Christmas, I am deconverted, and it wasn't until my early 20s that I fully deconverted, and I never had an issue whatsoever with that particular aspect of it, with certain traditions. Of course, the more you dig into it, the way that Christmas is celebrated here is quite different than like a strict interpretation of Christian mythology. It's not like the Bible tells us to to celebrate Christmas as we do, and rather tells us not to in certain aspects. But even the religious parts of Christmas that we have, they don't really bother me. The neighbor across the street from me has a huge nativity scene, like almost like Lampoon's Christmas level lights, and they're like, because there are two neighbors and they have like equally, they're kind of competing with giant light shows and how much electricity they can waste. But that really doesn't bother me. Like when I pull out of my driveway and I see a giant nativity scene, doesn't bother me in the least bit. It also wouldn't bother me if they hung up a big Star of David, if they put up a cross, if there were a crescent moon. None of these things would bother me. I'm not a Seattle Seahawks fan, but if they wanted to paint their house in the colors of the Seahawks and put a logo on their house, that wouldn't bother me either. And if I go to someone's party who likes to celebrate these sort of things, if I go over and watch a game of football with friends and they're rooting for a team that I'm not, that doesn't bother me either.
Stop being so agreeable.
Yeah,
I know.
So nothing offends you.
These things don't. What does offend me, of course, is when
somebody tries to chop off a piece of your penis.
Yeah, that would probably piss me off.
Yeah.
He's like, well,
let me think about that for a minute.
And when someone justifies doing so to newborn children because of religious reasons, that gives me some pause on the gravy train of agreeability.
Sure.
But yeah, Christmas itself, when people, I don't mind calling it Christmas. That doesn't bother me. None of those things do, and it was one of the easiest things, really, going from theism to atheism. I had no difficulty. Like, oh, how do I accept Christmas now? These things just became formalities, and they became traditions that I had personally I had no difficulty absorbing.
I'm actually kind of glad that I don't have a camera on right now, because if I did, you would see a Christmas tree behind me right now, and I think that officially makes me white trash.
Well, yeah, I think it does too. Take your fucking Christmas tree down.
It does.
It's not about being an atheist. It's just about, like, take down the fucking tree, dude.
Yeah.
Well, all the decorations are off of it, if that counts. So we're almost there. I mean,
so it's just a tree.
Yeah,
so you're letting it dry out so you can use it as kindling.
Is it plastic?
No, it's a plastic one. We're
oh
not.
My gosh. Can't burn that.
Environmentally friendly dark matter household.
Yeah.
Wow.
Except for all the plastic.
I don't celebrate really any holidays, but I still I like certain aspects. Like, I like songs. There's a lot of Christmas songs I hate, but there are some really beautiful Christmas songs that I like to hear that even mention baby Jesus and stuff. But I don't know. I think there's aspects that you can look at that you think are good, but this is the thing that they try to put on atheists. They talk about when you say God bless you or bless you, they're like, oh, I thought you were an atheist. It's like, dude, this is colloquialisms. Like, you don't understand. At this point, there's nothing religious behind it. It's just words. So just deal with it.
Yeah. Well,
and hold on, everybody, just for a second. For everybody who is watching and everybody who's in chat, please click on the thumbs up button for this show. It's the very first broadcast for this show. And if you enjoy the commentary that you're listening to, please subscribe and click on the like button. And after this is over, leave a comment. Feel free to have commentary in the chat. So we really appreciate it. Thanks.
Let me ask you a question real quick before I get booted.
Yeah, what's up?
All right, what does the panel think about when atheists put up like a billboard or a sign or something like that, and the Christians want to take it down? But we have no problem with the nativity scenes and the Christmas tree lights and the whole spirit of Christmas. We don't have a problem with. But how do you guys feel about when Christians want to take down what atheists want to put up?
It's pretty hypocritical.
Yeah, it's definitely hypocritical, but also, I think I don't know. We're kind of forced into these cultural norms, right? I mean, the country has been built from Judeo-Christian traditions and dogma. So it's the same argument of like, okay, well, I have to listen to the Little Drummer Boy, or at work during the Christmas season because my company puts Christmas music on. Why do I have to fucking listen to that shit? And it's just if you swim against that current, then you just end up getting crushed by the Christian majority who trivializes those things and says that it's nothing. We're not trying to push our beliefs on you. It's just a fucking song, for fuck's sake. I think there has been pushback against billboards out there that Christians have put up from the atheist community. I have done one myself where I can't remember which family organization put up the billboard in Richmond, Virginia, but it was about the twins, and one of them was gay and one of them was not, and they were trying to prove that that homosexuality was not genetic; it wasn't hereditary. So I think there is a fight, at least in equal measure, to the proselytization of the Christian billboard, as the atheist billboard. I think I think there's a battle going on there, and I don't think it's heavy on one side or the other.
Yeah, I think that we have to be fair when thinking. Yeah, I don't know if anybody on this panel has a problem with a nativity scene existing. Um, Granted, I can understand, I can empathize with somebody who says this is a public plot of land. It's supposed to be secular, and I don't want to see one religion in particular being favored in this particular plot of land. If you want to put it up at your house, that's fine. I can understand where that person comes from. Steve mentioned it earlier. It's not a hill he wants to die on when he was referring to so a lot of these things that get brought up, and I think people that are earlier in their deconversion state. I had a video recently, titled something to the effect of "Dear newly converted atheists," because people that are newly deconverted oftentimes are thinking of all these sorts of things. I certainly was. You become very aware of kind of how privileged you were, and if I can use that term without a shitstorm in the chat, but but just how all the things that you weren't really aware of, that you just took for granted as a Christian, that all these things are kind of catered toward you when you were a member of that majority, and then all of a sudden you've reached a point in your life when you're not. And Noah's probably the closest to us, closest to this out of all of us, where all of a sudden, holy shit, why does my money say that I trust in God, and why are there all these nativity scenes, and why is God bless America something that my presidential candidate has to say if he's going to get elected, and all of these sort of things come to light. But later on, I guess, and this is, I don't want to make a generalization that applies to everybody, but in my case, as I matured over a few years, I've reached a point of nuance that I have with other issues, and I've kind of become more tolerable of certain things. They don't bother me as much as they used to, because I think there are hills worth dying upon, and they aren't things that are trivial. And I also realize that it can become demonizing, because it creates things like fodder for, oh, there's a war on Christmas. And atheists are people that they get angry if you say God bless you, and these sort of things. So I guess I can see both sides of it. It wasn't like it was 20, 30 years since I became an atheist. I'm not so far divorced from that time that I don't remember these things kind of bothering me, and when I was more of a firebrand about it. But I also think that you have to draw a line somewhere, and you have to pick those battles. And I don't know that, say, the American Atheists organization has done a great job of picking those battles. And when you have that kind of, when you're putting up billboards, when you're putting up these things, you're making an affront, and you're making a big deal about it. You do kind of represent the other people in that demographic, or at least in public perception, you do. I talked a lot. I'm going to stop. Sorry.
Who else wants to jump in on this?
I will. So
Yeah.
This goes back to like the original article we were talking about briefly about not shaking off Christianity, right? So the unfortunate thing about billboards, right, is that it tends to give the image of atheists as responsive, that who we are, right, to use that phrase, as atheists, is in some sense a response to Christianity, to God. It's you're defined by your interaction with those who believe, as opposed to letting your positions on various different things, on a certain type of God existing or not existing, be versus this context that we're in when we're in a very Christian culture. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is it prevents us from really having conversations about what atheism is, and sort of paints a picture for us as responsive to responding to Christians in a Christian culture. And I think that's unfortunate. It sort of makes us look like we're on we're sort of backed into a corner, and we're now responding by doing what Christians do, which is making billboards sort of marketing our view. And I kind of don't like that. And I think that this goes back again to the idea that shaking off Christianity means to me, it means having conversations about a number of different things, whether it be morality or meaning or value or any of those sorts of like, really small issues, outside of a context framed in inherently religious dialogue, good versus evil, right? That's a very inherently Christian concept in a lot of ways. And morality is really framed that way in every single, in movies and TV, and it's imbued into the culture. And so, being an atheist in that sort of setting it's almost impossible for it to not be a not response, like to be a non-response. It's always a response in a culture like that. That's always kind of frustrated me. I hope I'm making that clear. I feel like I'm jumbling my words.
No, you're making it clear, and we're going to talk more about this as we get into the atheist-theist kind of dichotomy on YouTube when it first started back in the day. We're going to be talking about that exact thing. So I think you're hitting the nail right on the head there.
So those billboards aren't, I think, as much saying that God doesn't exist as atheists do exist. I think they're more toward atheists than Christians,
Well, but
some of them anyway.
They talk about, and it's not just God. You see the ones that are like, I'm right here, with the tilde next to it, and God, as you drive down the road. There are other ones that are like abortion billboards or some kind of primarily theist argument that they're trying to make some social issue.
And if I could just interject, if anybody in the chat or in the call
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Has ever been convinced by a billboard, like converted to a new position by a billboard, you go ahead and let me know.
Because Dark Matter has seen such a billboard, and remarkably, he was on it. He was on it, and the message is very clear. So yeah, if you have been convinced by something like that, you should definitely.
Inside jokes are awesome with like an audience of 121 people.
Yeah, that's true.
They're very appropriate.
It sucks because we just do a screen share and show the fucking billboard, but I'm on a computer that doesn't have the image on it.
Someone needs to do a video like that, like where a guy like walks up to the billboard and just looks up, and there's like this magic moment where they go, "Oh my God." Like, I'm now an atheist.
That's a great idea.
That would be.
There's a sign that says, "The fool hath said in his heart there is no God," and the person's like, "Well, shit."
I guess I've been a fool.
I don't want to be a fool.
Grappling, you can make that video because there's one on fucking 95 right by the house.
I see it every time I drive that way.
It's fucking crazy.
Well, when I lived down in Texas, and then I drove all through like the South. I drove all through the South.
Droovy.
Hey, being in the South messed my brain up, apparently. No, but I drove all through the South, and there were crosses, tons of billboards telling me when the apocalypse was going to come. By the way, there's many different apocalypses coming. Talking about abortion, talking about it's everywhere. All of these billboards, and I'm thinking, how much money was spent on this shit? And then especially, I have my daughter sitting next to me, and she's just like, what is this? Let's call them. Let's troll them. Like, she wants to prank call the phone numbers and stuff. Like, who is being convinced by these billboards? I really don't know. But my favorite part was when I moved from California to Texas, the thing I noticed on the freeway, you have a
freeway?
The freeway when I'm driving. No, like
the thing I noticed on the freeway.
It's okay, Shayrah. There's only like 130 people watching.
The freeway. It was a billboard.
Shut up.
I'm sorry. It's fun and it's cute.
I know. Shut up. No, but seriously, like there would be a billboard about God, and then there'd be a porn shop, and there'd be a billboard about God, and then
Nice.
XXX, and then a billboard with a cross on it, and then freaking XXX with girls with boobs, and I'm just like, where am I?
Those
What
are my
is this
favorite
place?
ones. It was like seeing the billboard for the veterinarian that was like right up against the fucking Chinese food restaurant. It's fantastic.
The billboards are usually Jesus is watching you too. When
Right.
when they're by the porn shops, it's Jesus is watching you.
And I usually make sure to touch myself when I see those.
that leads to, I think Dark Matter actually in a rare moment made a good point. And
Whoa,
said,
whoa.
Yeah, he is
There
kind,
it is.
kind
There
of
it
a,
is.
kind of an idiot. So
throwing shots.
it's always a risk
Now,
with when you have John on. Always a
he
risk.
mentioned, well, it was half of a good point. Okay, half of it was kind of bullshit. He said that he thinks that those billboards, those atheist billboards, are more about saying that that atheists are here, that they exist, and to more targeted toward other atheists. And I think some of those are, a lot of them aren't. The ones that get a lot of attention aren't, because obviously places like Fox News don't want to talk about the ones that are targeted toward atheists. They want to talk about the ones that seem divisive. And that's why I think those kind of billboards that Dark Matter is talking about, ones that are just reminding people, or at least that's their primary goal, is to say, hey, you're not alone. You have these doubts. It's not like you're the only one. Because in America, really many parts of America, it's not just the rural South, but in many parts of America, you can feel like that. You can feel like you're the crazy one, because everyone around you seems to be drinking the Kool-Aid, if you will. And on that note, so in terms of the type of billboards, the type of advertising that people are going to put out in favor of that, I think that those are the ones to aim for. And I think that in the ones that you're talking about, there's you're saying a Christian billboard, then a pornographic billboard. I think if you're going to invest in billboards, you can spread awareness with them. I don't think you're going to give a piece of rhetoric that's going to solve a question that's been debated since philosophy began, but you can spread awareness. And I think a quality billboard choice would be to see where there is a Christian billboard, and then just buy the next billboard and just say everything that last billboard says is bullshit. I think that's a quality place to start.
Yeah. And then they pull a fast one on you and change their billboard to say atheism is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So as long as nobody else has anything that they want to interject, I want to move on to the main topic of the night.
Before you do, I just want
Yeah.
to add my wife, while we were talking, took down the Christmas tree.
Oh, that's
she
smart
heard
thinking.
me. She heard me, and
She was like, "Fuck it, tonight's the night."
yeah.
I also said it's so easy, any idiot can do it.
There you
Well,
go.
why are you looking at me when you say
Because
that?
you've been home all
any
day and you
idiot.
haven't done shit. That's why.
I've been working on cartoons.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
really
that takes
important.
precedent over the fucking Christmas tree.
Yet I
being
go
here.
out and work 36 hours a week.
Oh,
Wait, okay.
here it goes.
Oh,
Thank you, Lisa.
Whoa,
Thank you.
Get her on camera. I want to hear more of this. This is
Don't neck roll. I mean, nobody can see your little impressive posture here.
Yeah, but I can imagine it, and it is
People that
impressive.
know me well.
Yeah.
I was
So
okay. All right.
Yeah,
I'll my domestic matters will cease to interrupt the show. Go
okay,
on.
fantastic. So just before we begin our main topic, I want to also remind everybody who's watching to please click on the thumbs up on the video, and please join the discussion in the chat. Dev is here, and his comment is, "You can handle my man throat." So that is that's the thing.
Duly noted.
Duly noted. And also, thank you very much for being here on our first show. This is fantastic. Anyway, so our main topic of discussion, I wanted to get into, and this is something that we'll revisit. You know, we'll talk about this more than once, but I wanted to talk about what the state of evangelism is on YouTube or in a digital format, and how it's evolved over the time. All the people on the panel have been doing this for years. We've all been doing YouTube for probably all of us 5 years or more. Been doing YouTube videos, and it started off doing kind of ponage videos and commentary, getting everybody's kind of philosophy of religion on their videos, and then picking on the theists like Together for Peace and Jesus Freak and Yoke Up, and some of those interesting characters that you don't really see very much of anymore. And then it kind of went away. after a while, and everybody said,
48.
yeah,
No,
Veritas 48. Everybody, or Venom Fang X, that's the other side of it too. So, but then it kind of went away. And everybody, people like Coughlin, have said that the atheist YouTube community is dead. That it's just not worth resurrecting, if that's even possible. And people question whether it was even a thing in the beginning. I believe that it was. I still think that my experience on YouTube, and by the way, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now if I didn't have an experience on YouTube regarding the atheist-theist debate. I've met every single one of the people who is on this panel on YouTube, and I've known them for years. We've forged some of us very, very strong and tight bonds that will never fucking be broken. So it understandably was kind of tough for us to try to adapt when the theists stopped responding to our videos or stopped making really stupid videos. It was difficult for us to adapt and continue making content when we didn't have this other thing. And this is my estimation. Didn't have this other thing being able to bounce off of, right? We weren't able to pick on the same people that we were picking on because they kind of shut the fuck up after a while. So now the state of YouTube atheism or YouTube theism or digital or YouTube evangelism, I'm kind of wondering what all of the people on the panel's impression of this is. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel like there was a definite moment where theism on YouTube kind of just went away? Do you feel like do you feel nostalgic about it? Do you have any desire to continue your activism with response videos or videos of your own content on YouTube? And I think we'll start with Noah Veritas 48 because it's one of the reasons why I wanted him on here, and he might have to leave a little bit early, so that's another reason why I want to get him in before he has to go. But I wanted his opinion about how it was to be on the other side, and to see if that part of YouTube just crumbled after a while. So what's your opinion, Noah?
Yeah. So once I left, right? No, I'm just kidding. No, it definitely did. Yeah, it definitely did. I haven't been keeping up too much with it lately, but the way I look at it is kind of, I mean, from what I've seen now, it's almost like maybe a good metaphor is like Iraq, right? We go in, the atheists go in, they take out Saddam, and then ISIS comes and takes over. Well, that's the YouTube evangelical people today, G-Man and everybody, right? It's like the worst possible sorts of dialogue that could exist today, I feel are happening. I mean, maybe you guys can bring me up to speed with maybe some good theistic Christian or Muslim YouTubers, but it's kind of hard to find now. I feel like in our day it was really simple, right? You had a button that was like, hey, you want to respond to this video? Click that button and they'll get a thing in their inbox, and look, you got a new video from this person, right? It was very interactive. It was very person-to-person. It was nice. The medium definitely killed it. We all know that. The medium changes, the advertisements, all that stuff ruined, I think, the kind of real good interaction, if there ever really was a good kind of interaction on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is a big shift in the medium. I think you're right, Josh. A lot of people left. A lot of people just didn't interact there anymore. The way I look at it is, do you guys remember the YouTuber? What was his name?
Yes,
the Amazing Believer. The Amazing Believer. Do you remember him?
I don't.
Oh,
No.
God. Okay, I think he still has. There's some remnants of his videos, right? The most calm, mild-mannered little white kid you've ever seen in your life. Perfect Christian. Parents built him a tree house. He did all his videos from a tree house, and he would talk to atheists. He would tell them why they were wrong, right? Using like Ray Comfort style apologetics. And the Amazing Atheist and everyone else just completely bashed the shit out of him. This happened in my mind to so many Christians that it left kind of it was kind of hard to like do the Christian thing on YouTube. And if you did, good luck getting by the radar of a lot of really, really big name atheists who would basically just pwn you and turn serious things that you felt were serious into kind of just trollery Olympics. I was on some of the receiving end of that, although I think my videos tended to be a little more intellectual, I hope, I don't know, than people like the Venom Fang X and whatnot. But even me, man, I mean, I got my share of that. I had my account hacked. I've had a whole bunch of that kind of shit happen. And eventually for me it was just like, well, this really isn't like really isn't doing it for me anymore. But there was a period where it was like some of the best interaction I think I've ever had in my life when it comes to, like, I haven't been able to replicate it in any of my normal day-to-day conversations with believers. It really is a shame. I think that there was something, there was a flame, there was a spark back in maybe like '07 to 2011, around there. And it just kind of was killed by the medium, and what it's left with now, I mean, shit, man, go look on YouTube. There's 7-hour Google Hangouts of Christians and atheists screaming at each other. It's horrific.
Yeah, it's terrible. And there isn't that intimate interaction anymore, and maybe it's because the theists just got tired of it, just got tired of having to deal with it or having those interactions. Which always
those Meridianfrosts of the world.
Hey, come on now. But it's so much fun, and I'm with you. Some of the best interactions that I've ever had in my life with atheists and theists alike have happened between that 2007 to 2011 period, and I was having a great time. I wasn't making a lot of videos during that time, and most of the videos that I made were silly, but it really kind of sparked that drive to interact, to really try to take a bite out of it. And some of us are just more gifted at calling people an asshole than other people are. And there were times, especially when you came along, where I longed for that kind of more intellectual discourse, so we could get a discussion going. And that's what part of that's part of what this is about this show. Because like it or not, I'm going to be here every fucking week, and we're going to be talking about these kinds of issues. And I want to be able to have theists who really disagree kind of spark that kind of debate again. And it doesn't have to be theists. It could be feminists as well. It could be any other issue. It could be, people are gonna try to crush each other's. Like, I'm gonna crush Steve Shives' nuts on feminism at some point. At some point during the conversation, I will crush his nuts under a metaphorical boot, and it's just going to happen. But that's the beauty of it. You got to be able to have that dialectical process with people that can take it, that people that can respond to you, that can say, okay, well, here's this. Wait a minute, I'm gonna talk about this. And it's just, from what you said, no, it sucks. Today, it's 7-hour long hangouts. It's exactly right. Of people just screaming over each other, not being able to have a civilized discussion about the issues at hand. And I want to try the best I can to moderate that kind of a discussion. I want to be able to do that. So that's where I come out. And the evolution of the YouTube community for me is sure, it's a disappointment. I want those days back, just probably like everybody else does. But I think that moving on from that, we have to realize those days are gone, and we have to adapt to what those days have become. And it's difficult when Feuerstein doesn't post on YouTube and doesn't interact with any of his videos. You can't. I mean, it's doubly difficult because you can see the money in all this stuff now, and the people who are driven by that. They make more money when they ignore people that are critical of them, I think. So I don't know if that's a formula now for the evangelical YouTuber. I don't know if it's a formula, or if I just fucking ignore them, then I will have my own space over here, and nobody will try to intrude and call me a fucking asshole. So
yeah, it's really odd, right? Because now we're in the age of like Patreon and monetization of videos. So you would think that would sort of incite Christians to be like, hey, let's make more videos on YouTube, right? Sort of the, I don't know, like digital televangelist sort of thing, right? There was like the e-begging days of certain YouTubers, but it still hasn't really prompted anything substantive. I don't know. It's kind of weird.
What do you think about the theory that atheists don't have that in real life? They don't have that sense of community that religious folks have, that Christians have, where they go to a church every week and congregate, and when YouTube came along, atheists suddenly had that out of nowhere. We could connect. Hey, there's other atheists out there, and like Christians have that. They have that offline, and why deal with bullshit online when they can get together offline? And atheists this is what we have. We're not together in a community physically.
That might be why YouTube is dying for atheism, because actually communities are popping up all over the place in different cities now, where people are actually able to hang out and talk to each other. I've been to many of these groups in many different cities, and people are actually interacting with each other as atheists in a church like a organization. There's a Fellowship of Free Thought in Dallas that we used to go to, and it was a bunch of people hanging out. We had people in the Dallas area like Aaron Ra and other people would show up, do talks, and we'd hang out and talk about stuff. But the most important part was all the kids would go into a class and learn about science instead of children's church or the things that they do. They would learn about science. They get to pet goats and learn about worms and do all these different crafts and stuff. And so there are atheist churches, if you will, popping up on Sundays for everybody to visit with each other. So
I really fucking hate that too.
Yeah.
It's so annoying.
Yeah, but like here's the thing. I actually got annoyed with it because it had the same exact kind of politics behind it that churches did, which I was anti-church before I was not a Christian. There was a lot of politics involved in it that ended up making it ugly, and that's happening with atheist churches, or whatever you want to call them, as well. So. Having a social hierarchy to a philosophy is just not. It doesn't work.
Sure.
It really doesn't work.
I agree. Steve, I remember watching the very first video of yours that I watched was the video that you had about the commentary of your dog, and that really was very touching to me. But somebody told me that, or was it you that made the comment that your very first video response that you made on YouTube was to Veritas?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you got when you got involved in the YouTube community, when was it? Was it 2011, 2010?
It was 2010. I actually, while you were talking about it, I looked it up to make sure that I was remembering it right. I've been doing it for about 6 years, and yeah, my very first YouTube video was a response to Veritas 48. So everybody who likes me, he gets the credit. Everybody who hates me, it's all his fault.
Ah.
But what's
Do you remember what video you were responding to?
It was one of the iterations of your 5 questions for atheists. And actually, that video, my response video to you, is still up on my channel. I shouldn't say still up. I originally did it as a 2-part video because that was back when you could only upload videos that were like 10 minutes long. But I edited it into one cut and re-uploaded it, so it's on my channel somewhere.
Cool. I'm actually responding to that video myself. Actually, I'm making a response. I really am.
That's awesome.
Making a response to Veritas 48. It's very meta.
That's awesome. But I mean, what's strange for me, and I kind of sit here and listen to you guys reminisce about it, and I feel like I'm almost coming at it from a different perspective, because I mean, by the time I started doing this seriously, that era of, sort of the response videos and the back and forth was kind of coming to an end. So I never really got to participate in that very much. Like my very first YouTube video was a response video to Noah, but I've only done like a handful of response videos since then. I mean, I've done 1,500 videos. I have 1,500 videos on my channel, and I mean, maybe a dozen of them are response videos to someone else's video. So I mean, it's nothing that I ever really got into, and it's nothing that I really miss because I just didn't have that experience, But I do notice there does seem like there's definitely a lack of participation or of activity on the evangelical Christian side. I mean, I remember, and some of that maybe is just that I just don't pay attention as much anymore. I mean, at a certain point, I kind of lost interest myself in the argument. I mean, I started to sort of lose a sense of the value of having the same arguments back and forth with Christians, where I just thought, what is this accomplishing? And I know that I've had people tell me that they saw a video that I did, about that sort of thing, and I'm sure lots of us in this room have the same experience where they said, "Oh, I saw the video that you did as a response to so and so, and it really impacted me, and it really made a difference and made me change my thinking," and that's great, but I just that just doesn't appeal to me anymore, So the few response videos that I've done recently have always been like responses to, like to an article I read, or to a list. Like I did videos a couple months ago to like something on Matt Slick's website, just this list of like apologetics questions, and that was fun, and it felt kind of old school. It felt like, man, we used to do this kind of thing. We used to respond like to their arguments and to their questions, and it was kind of fun, But it's not the sort of thing I would want to do all the time. I feel like it would be limiting.
I think that's actually what's wrong with YouTube right now, and I think it's because we've decided to segregate ourselves into particular groups to have our own little echo chamber bubbles instead of interacting with one another and trying to hear the opposing side and challenge each other on our positions. And I think that's actually a huge problem with YouTube, and it might very well be why so many people are like, you know what, fuck it, I'm not going to make any more videos.
Yeah.
We need to have that interaction with people we disagree with, and we need to argue those points. It needs to happen.
I think that, for my own part, we were talking about this the other night about how the vast majority of the atheist community didn't engage Islam, and I had to say, no, well, wait a fucking minute. I engaged Islam a lot. I've made videos about Islam, mocking it. I made video responses, very thoughtful video responses to Dawa films, talking about Islam. Or just talking about the Quran in general, and I think that that's a very important part of the YouTube history about, not saying, okay, I'm just going to pick on Christianity, and why aren't we going after Islam more? Why aren't we saying this is broken? Why is it just Christian that we pick on? Is it that the majority of the viewers are in the United States, and this is the majority religion in the United States, that we're just picking on Christianity? Because I know other YouTubes out there that are guilty of this, that have not taken on Islam, and it kind of does paint it in the air of you're picking and choosing here. You're not going far enough. You're being hypocritical in your viewpoints.
Do you guys remember the Rational Dawn videos? Does that ring a bell at all?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, so that was kind of my attempt at like bringing like Muslims into the atheist sort of world a little more, and it ended up turning out into kind of like us Christians who were doing the videos with Dawa films, like we ended up fighting about our conception of God to dialogue about it with atheists about. So it ended up being like, well, shit, this isn't going to work because, I don't know, Christians and Muslims don't really agree on a lot of things. So that ended up kind of sucking. That kind of blew up in our face.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, that was awful.
Spectacularly, by the way.
Yeah. And I didn't name it Rational Dawn. I think it was Dawa Films.
It was Dawa Films.
Yeah, very condescending. Yeah, it's hard, right? It's hard nowadays to have anything like those sorts of conversations. I tried recently with a group called Apologia Studios. I was like, I'm just gonna like try and get back into it, right? And like make a video response to these presuppositional apologists. It's like, what the hell? It's been 3 years, haven't made a video. And it was like, if you go to my channel and watch my interaction with James White and Jeff Durbin, it was like it made me go, okay, I'm good. Like, nope, I'm done. Now I know why I'm not doing this anymore. Yeah, it's like the technology's gotten better, right? We're able to have 1 million people in a room like this. This isn't like Stickam where everybody drops every 5 minutes except for Tommy. But like, things have gotten better. Mics have gotten better. We can do things live. People can interact with us. But if you don't have that kind of like that context where people are like egalitarian about each other and elitist about their ideas, and it's not flipped, right? And people aren't complete dicks to each other, and then think that there's no fallibilistic input to any of their views, right? I'm right, you're wrong, fuck you, and it's 7 hours of a G-Man chat, right? Like that. Right. If you flip that, I feel like there was a sense in which the old YouTube days, let me get out my cane, had that a little more than it does nowadays, right? So. Yeah, I learned that kind of the hard way recently. I great camera, great production setup. I think the people I was responding to had like $8,000 cameras, did like a full production response to me, and it was like some of the shittiest responses I've ever had, even back from my old days. It was awful. I was very
tech doesn't make brain.
Yeah, I think that's a problem to me.
I agree. Does anybody in here think that we shouldn't go after Islam? Or that atheists shouldn't have made an effort to go after Islam the way that we went after Christianity?
Let me touch on that a little bit. I don't want to say that you shouldn't, but I do think there's more to it that, and I would disagree that it's hypocritical to not do so. When you're looking at the audience, like you mentioned, majority audience, and it's funny that you phrased it as, are we picking on Christians? Are we picking on a 80+% majority group that, and even more so in the area where you live? Are we picking on them, and why don't we go pick on the barely over 1% group instead? To say that, well, the 80% Christians, you're picking on them because they're the ones on whom you're focusing, but the group that you might actually outnumber, you should go attack them. You should go attack, not them, but you should attack their argument. You should go after their side. You should go after their religion. I think that a lot of atheist YouTubers are more qualified to discuss issues of Christianity and more motivated to do so because it more directly affects their lives, and a lot of them have deconverted or have grown up in that culture and haven't necessarily taken the time and effort to read a translation of the Quran or have the kind of discussions that they have. And you're dealing with, essentially, most of us are amateurs. Most of us don't have theology degrees or haven't done the amount of reading and research and haven't been surrounded by other people in our lives that could have those arguments with us.
And Richie, just 1 second. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Noah has to leave. Thanks for coming on, Noah. I really appreciate you being here. I hope that you come back. You have a standing invitation to be here. Maybe when you have a little bit more time, we can talk more in depth about things. But sure, thanks very much for coming.
Absolutely, I greatly appreciate it. I'll be back whenever you have me.
Great. Yeah, it's good to see you.
Thanks, man.
Peace.
Someone just asked, for fuck's, I don't know if this is sarcastic, but they said, for fuck's sake, which is it, grappling ignorance, under 1% Muslim or 1.6 billion? Well, one would be the amount of Muslims who exist, and the other would be the amount who exist in this country, or the percentage who exist in this country. So I'm no math person, but that's how numbers work. So yeah, I don't feel like, and I've made a few responses to Muslims as individuals. I haven't made a video saying Islam is not correct and here's why. And I've been called a Muslim apologist for not doing that. I guess I was a Muslim apologist because I didn't make a video condemning the attacks in Paris because I didn't say that was bad. But yeah, I don't think that someone's necessarily hypocritical because they don't go after every single religion, whether that be we're not going after Judaism, and there's no backlash for not doing that. But there are YouTubers who exist, who are within that atheist community, who are qualified to discuss Islam and who do go through the Quran chapter by chapter. But like I said, if that's not the majority of your viewership, if most people aren't really affected by that themselves, then they probably aren't as likely to be interested in it. But I don't think that it's non-existent on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Dark Matter?
I've been conflicted about this for a while because the where I live, is extremely Christian. I walk out my front door and it's a Christian utopia, and Christianity is something that I've known throughout my life and has affected me throughout my life. So I'm naturally, I want to address those topics. I want to do that. That's what I'm drawn to. And when I look at my demographics, the people who are watching me, it's people in the United States. It's Americans, and of course you have British too. Is that area is going to be colored. Western areas are going to be colored when you look at who's watching Dark Matter 2525, right? So if I started talking about Islam, it plays right into what Grappling Ignorance was saying. It's going to be people who aren't Muslims for the most part. There's going to be a few, but it's going to be a minority. So I'm not going to be reaching people with these arguments, and these types of issues don't affect me nearly as much as Christianity does. On the other hand, when we do talk about issues about Christianity, like what we've been doing throughout this whole show, it's been stuff like billboards and prayers before meetings and shit like that. But when we talk about Islam, we're talking about terrorism. We're talking about violence, right? So that's part of the inner turmoil with me that wants me to address that too. And Richie makes a good point that if we talk about this stuff here in America, and it's like we're attacking the 1% here because those are these are the people watching us, and it's not like we're attacking the other 99% abroad. We're attacking the 1% here, or not attacking, but those are the people who are going to bear the brunt of our commentary. And
Can I butt in a little bit? There are a lot of people upset that we're only talking about America when it comes to Islam, in the comment section. And do you think that might be a problem, that we are so America-centric that we're not? And I have a lot of room to talk. I have an American flag behind me, but do you think we're a little bit too American-centric, that we're not actually considering all the other aspects of Islam?
Yeah, that might be like the chicken or the egg scenario. Like, we might be getting American viewers because we're only talking about America. But if we did talk about other things, maybe our viewership would broaden, because this is a worldwide platform. So yeah, that could be like a chicken and egg scenario.
But again, if you are, I've never been outside of North America. I haven't gone and spent extended time or any time. I haven't spent any time in the Middle East. I haven't interacted with that culture. I haven't grown up in that area. Everything that I know about that is what I hear from people who have, and what I read and so forth. I'm not really interested in parroting things of that nature, where there are people who can say those things and do those things. I don't consider it America-centric to talk about the things that I've grown up with and the things that surround and affect me every day. And I find it unacceptable criticism against me when someone says, "Well, you need to talk about these other issues because they're important, and if you don't, then you're an apologist for those people." I don't think it's, my YouTube channel is for me to talk about the things that I choose to talk about, and there are things that I care about that I don't talk about on YouTube. There are things that I'm interested in, but I don't feel qualified to talk about as if I have any degree of authority or any even extended knowledge about it. We're all of us, like I said, to my understanding, we're essentially amateurs in a lot of the things we talk about. We're just people. That's kind of the beauty of YouTube, though. You don't hear a lot of. It's not like you're hearing people that are complete experts in one particular area. You're hearing people that are just normal people like anyone else, that are giving their spin on something. They're giving their take on something. So I don't know. I don't think it's being American-centric to target the audience that, or to talk about the topics where an American happens to be qualified.
Yeah, and also I can pretty much guarantee you that PewDiePie doesn't get shit for not talking about Islam.
I also think it's important, and this is a lesson that I have learned in the last several years, and one that I continue to learn and to occasionally disregard and then remember that it's important. It's important to know when you should be talking and when you should be listening. And I know as an American, as a Western non-Muslim, I am not that interested in hearing what other Western non-Muslims who don't really know that much about Islam or about various Muslim cultures have to say about it. It kind of goes to what Grappling Ignorance was saying. Like, if you're not qualified to speak on it, I'm not really interested in hearing what you have to say. And I can't imagine that Muslims who live in those countries would be terribly interested in it either, or would find it helpful to them, or persuasive or thought-provoking or whatever. So this idea that, well, what about the 99% of Muslims who live in the other parts of the world? I don't know if people like me and the other folks in this hangout and most of the other atheists who are doing work on YouTube are necessarily the best messengers or the best people to try to reach Muslim communities in the Middle East or in Africa or Asia, where there may be a desperate need for reform, where maybe those societies would benefit greatly from secularism, from income equality, from women's equality, from better treatment for LGBTQ people. I mean, there's no doubt that there are lots of things in the Muslim world that I would love to see change, that I would love to see progress and reform. But I don't think the reason it's not happening is because Americans on YouTube aren't talking enough about Islam. And this is something that I've struggled with personally, and this is something that I've thought about actually just today, because my video on my channel today was about Islamophobia. And there were people in the comments of that video reminding me that a few years ago I did some videos about Islam as part of the 5 Stupid Things series that were a lot harsher, on Islam than the tone I was taking in this video I just put up today, or the tone I've taken regarding Islam in the last couple years. And that's something that I struggle with, because I am an atheist, and I do think that Islam is a false religion, like any other religion, and there are elements of Islamic-influenced cultures in the world today that I have big problems with. Authoritarian governments, harsh treatment for gays and trans folk, harsh treatment for women and apostates, and there's a lot of things that I'm really deeply troubled by. But on the other hand, as Dark Matter and Grappling Ignorance have said, I live in a culture where Muslims are not a powerful majority, but are a despised minority. And it pains me to think that videos I've made in the past where I did take kind of a harsher tone toward Islam, where I did say things like, Muhammad fucked a 9-year-old girl, which is probably true, Hey,
God fucked a 12-year-old girl and made Jesus.
Yeah,
so.
God, Mary wasn't exactly,
No,
but,
she had to have been about 12 or 13 years old, considering their.
I'm not disagreeing. But it pains me to think that something I would have said in those videos would have made life more difficult for a Muslim person living in this country, or would have encouraged.
I don't think it would.
Hold on for a second. And before anybody else goes on, I have a huge problem with this. Let me just say off the bat, I've got a huge fucking problem with it, because if you're for women's rights, if you're for women being treated as equals, then your number one fucking target in the entire universe is Islam. And
but I just said I agree that there needs to be change. I just don't know if me talking about it is going to help anything. And again, it comes down to when should I talk and when should I listen, or when should I point out someone else who maybe you should listen to instead of me, because there are Muslim feminist groups that I like. There's a group, I think they're more of a Western group, but they do focus on issues in the Muslim world called WISE. That is a Muslim feminist group that I think deserve a lot more attention than they get. There's a group that has a Facebook page that's about encouraging women in Iran to take off the hijab,
taking off the
their
veil.
hair.
Yeah, that's important.
And I think that's great. And I think that does a lot more good than someone like me making a bunch of YouTube videos talking shit about
I totally
Islam.
fucking disagree with that 100%.
What good is it going to do for for people in Islamic countries?
What good is it going to do to make a video about anything?
But
why do you make videos in general? Why? I mean, because I know for a fact that there are people that live in other parts of the country that watch my videos and are inspired by my videos because I get messages from them on my channel. So if you reach one person and talk about how Islam is anti-woman, if you reach one person with that kind of a thing, then it could get the ball rolling. And this is how the fire gets started. That's
actually happened with me. I've had a woman
starts
who
the fire. So
I had a woman who was hidden and could not talk to me. She had to completely remain anonymous, and she was talking from another country. And she said that the things that I was talking about were empowering her. And she was forced to wear a hijab in the location that she was at, and she had to hide her identity completely because they were tracking how she was speaking to me. And it was a very dangerous situation that she was in. But she
Nesrin was like
reached
that.
out
Do you
to me.
remember? Do you remember Nesrin on YouTube? Nesrin would make all kinds of videos. She was Islamic, and she left the faith, and she had somebody try to fucking kill her because she left, and that was in the United States. It wasn't in some Islamic country. It was from the people that were here. I mean, the honor killings still happen in the United States.
They actually happened in Louisville, Texas, which was the city right next to mine. 2 high school girls were mercy killed by their parent. And this stuff does happen in the States. It is something that affects us. It is something we need to speak out against. But most importantly, when I was going to the Democratic Convention in Texas, there was an Islamic group there that was trying to show that their culture is really fun and awesome. They had food, dancing, other things, and it was awesome. But they had this woman come up who was doing a kind of, you know, that poetry, like talk, rappy poetry stuff. I forgot what it's called, but she went up to talk about her hijab, and I was with her throughout almost all of her poem. Beautiful fucking poetry, talking about how this is how she chooses to dress. This is she shouldn't be harassed for it. She shouldn't be treated badly for it. So on and so forth. And I'm like, you know what? Do what you got to do. But guess what she did later on in her poem? She started harassing people like me. I was dressed in a very short dress. You know, I didn't have my boobs hanging out or anything. It was tasteful because I was a politician's wife representing, but I had my legs showing. I was wearing high-heeled shoes. I didn't have my hair covered. And she was harassing people that would be dressed that way and kind of throwing out these accusations that she doesn't need to do this to appease men or to be sexually attractive. These are very dangerous ideas. And I'm not saying that she shouldn't be free to talk about it, but I should be very free to be like, fuck you, bitch. Quit going around telling me how to dress and how to be.
Can I throw something out there?
Hold on, this is real quick.
Okay.
I don't think that. Let me make this clear, because you said something, Steve, that I think is really important. That there are Islamic groups that are pro-woman, that are trying to make changes in the United States with regard to the women who are treated poorly in Islam. I think that's an important thing. But I think that also with that those videos that you think might not do any good, getting out into the wider part of the world to influence change, I also think that is a necessary component for that change, because if women are empowered in the world and they escape from underneath the thumb of Islam, then the world becomes a better place automatically.
Oh, I completely agree. And I'm not.
That's a good fight.
I absolutely, and I'm not saying that you know, you shouldn't ever talk about it, right? And certainly that you don't have a right to talk about it, because you do. I mean, and shit, you can make videos on your channel about whatever you want. I'm just saying, I worry sometimes that I will do more harm than good, because I don't know what your demographics are like. I know I don't get a lot of viewers from the Middle East. You know, I mean, I'm sure I get a few, but I don't get very many. And and if I were to make a video, and I know I've made those videos. I went back after people left comments on my video today. I went back and again for the second time in the last couple of years, went back and watched my videos about Islam and about Muhammad. And I mean, I stand by them for the most part, but there are things in them that I would change. You know, there are things that if I made them today, I would rewrite them a little bit to make them a little less, you know, poke in the eye, sort of confrontational, because as much as I feel like it's important to stand up for the people who are oppressed under authoritarian Islamic fundamentalist regimes, all of whom, or almost all of whom, are Muslims themselves, as much as I think that's really important, it also matters to me that I not contribute to the alienation of Muslims in my own culture. and that I not give and that I not give people who are working actively to alienate those Muslims in our culture and to make them feel unwelcome and to make them feel like, they're evil and they're wrong and they're the cause of all our problems and whatever. To not unwittingly give support to those people. It's something that I struggle with.
One thing
you can make the distinction. I'm sorry. Go ahead, John. You've been waiting to talk.
Yeah, one thing I did take issue with what you said, though, Steve, is that, while I agree that we have to be knowledgeable about a subject, in order to address it, like you're talking about, pointing to certain people as being more appropriate to handle this topic matter. Now, as far as like doctrine goes, yes, I absolutely agree with you. You can't just make whatever comments you want about the Quran unless you've actually read the fucking thing. But let me throw this analogy at you. If you see some woman getting beaten in the street, you don't need to know about the argument that took place beforehand to step in there and stop it. And when we see atrocities committed in the name of Islam, you don't even have to read the Quran to know that there's some fucked up shit going on, and maybe it would be a good idea to speak up on it.
I agree with that completely, but I think the point that I'm trying to make is that woman, if I see a woman being beaten in the street in front of me, in front of my house, right, then I am in a position to act and to intervene. And you're right, I don't care what the issue is, right? If I have the power to help someone who's being abused and it's right in front of my face, and I'm the one who is there, like I have to step in no matter what they're fighting about. But in the Islamic world, it's not going to be someone like me who is stepping in to stop the woman from being beaten or the gay person from being hanged or whatever. It's going to be other Muslims. And if Western culture is acting in a way that will only harden fundamentalism and will only make people more convinced that modernism is bad and liberalism is bad and the fundamentalist interpretation of Islam that tells them that they need to subjugate women and subjugate gay people and apostates. If we're only going to encourage that in what we're doing, then there's not going to be anybody in those countries that are going to step in and stop that sort of thing when it happens in front of them. Like it's great that we want to speak up against it, and it's great that we find it just revolting, the idea that people are treated so horribly under these regimes like that. Of course we do. But fixing that is a long-term thing, and one of the things I think that is necessary to fix that in the long term is to not further alienate those people and to not give them reasons to run further into fundamentalism. To encourage those more moderate voices in their own countries and to reach out and to make friends with those people and to make sure that we can find points of agreement and build bridges and be on their side. And when someone like me makes a video that is really, really super harsh on Islam, I had better make damn sure that I've got that thing exactly right. Because
Why,
it is
though?
a tiny because it's a tightrope. Because someone like me who has no experience in Islamic culture personally and doesn't know a lot about Islam in general, other than just the basic sort of objections that I have to it, I have no experience, I have no real expertise, and it would be incredibly easy for me to inadvertently say something in a video that my heart's in the right place, I think I'm saying the right thing, but it winds up being really, really damaging and harmful and counterproductive.
So do you think it's wrong for someone like Josh to make a video about Christianity since he was never raised in it?
Well, no, but he was raised in a Christian-dominated culture.
So that makes it okay. Just because he's raised in a Christian-dominated culture doesn't matter if he's actually misrepresenting that culture. It just matters that he's in a dominated culture.
There's that, and the fact that he lives in a Christian-dominated culture and he is making a video that is criticizing that culture means that he's punching up, not punching down. If he were an atheist who was living in a Muslim culture, and he made a video criticizing Islam, obviously it would be a completely different situation. Obviously, then he would also be punching up because he's going after the dominant religious institution in his culture.
But we're talking about something that's dominant anyway. Go ahead.
Because this is important. Certainly being raised in a culture that is dominated by a particular ideological group of people and being more knowledgeable of that ideology than somebody who's just stepping into it from a position of non-belief. It's going to have maybe a shoe-in the discussion. But again, I've contended before that I know about Christianity more. I know more about Christianity than most Christians do, and you probably are the same way, Steve. But I also would contend that I know about Islam more than a lot of Islamic people know about it. And if my primary focus is the empowerment of women, which I'm an activist for, and my primary focus is the empowerment of women, I have to seek out the most egregious things that are happening to not make that a reality and fuck their shit up. And I don't think that it is. I don't think that it's that. I mean, of course, there can be counterproductive things. Somebody might come out and say, "Well, I believe this," and they might be hurt or they might be killed by somebody else. But isn't that even more of a reason to speak up and say this is wrong? Isn't it more of an example to say I cannot believe in this and I cannot support it in any way because of the things that it does to cripple, half of the people on the planet?
Could I add on to that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is voice starts with change starts with a voice, and then it ripples out. Okay? Like, so, Steve, if you didn't make a video, you have about 50-something thousand subscribers.
Right.
Okay? Let's say you're not 100% accurate, but you got that message out there. That allows people to be woken up a little bit. They say, Steve's talking about this. Let me research this a little bit more. You give them the opportunity to research more, and then you research a little bit more, and then everybody comes up on the same level. But it takes that one voice, to get that message out there. You know what I mean? 1 million people can make a change. So if 1 million Steve Shives go out there and make a video, that raises awareness, right?
Oh, you're absolutely right.
Right.
But the Steve Shives that starts it, to my mind, had better make sure that he gets that first one as good as he can possibly get it.
Steve. You haven't started it. At least you could help. That's my point.
Well, but no, but I've made videos about Islam. I'm not 100% happy with them. I mean, I think there are some good things in them, but I'm not, like I said, if I were to redo the videos I've done, today, there are things in them that I would change. I just think it's really important to get it right when you're talking about another culture, especially another culture that is a minority in your culture, in the culture that you interact with in every day, and the culture that most of the people who will see your video are a part of. It's really important to me to get that right. And it's not impossible. It's possible to get it right. People have gotten it right.
Okay.
But lots of people way smarter than me, who probably know a lot more about Islam than me, have also gotten it really, really wrong. And it matters to me to get it right. And there are times when I look back on my own work when I think, damn it, I didn't get it right.
You can't be right all the time. Steve, you can't be right all the time.
I'm not saying you have to be right all the time. I'm just saying you should always endeavor to be as right as possible. And I know there are times in the past when I have gotten it wronger than I would like to have gotten it. And I'm like I said, I'm conflicted about that. I'm doing a video series right now that deals with Islam. It deals more with Christianity, but it deals with Islam in a way. And I have a couple other videos planned that will be directed more toward Islam than I usually do. But it's something that I'm very careful about because I don't want to do more harm than good.
Hold on, everybody. Hold on for just a second.
Failure brings brilliance, though, Steve.
Hold on a minute.
Along the way.
Tommy, hold on. Just as a reminder for everyone, this is our first show, Therefore God. We are a secular commentary, atheist commentary that's going to be on every Wednesday at 8 p.m. If you like what you're seeing, please don't forget to click on the thumb up and join the discussion in the chat. It's pretty lively right now. I just looked at it and it's going bonkers. So please don't forget to do that. Subscribe to the channel so you can come back every week and check out our show. Sorry for the plug, everyone. Please continue.
Eradicate Muslims.
Oh no, we got GI.
See, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Drop the bomb.
Yeah, he's not being serious. Not being serious.
That's exactly what I'm talking
about. Grappling Ignorance, do you have anything to jump in with here?
Yes.
Okay, please do.
A couple of things. I think that Steve is being unjustly critiqued on a couple of points here. One point is that he's not saying that other people shouldn't make videos about this topic. He's not saying that other people shouldn't be activists for this topic. And some of the criticisms that I'm hearing against him right now seem to be suggesting that he is, that he's saying, you know, he never said Josh, who is very well versed and understands the Quran well. He's not saying, Josh, you shouldn't make a video. He's not saying you can't do that. He's not saying that people who aren't raised in that culture can't. He's simply saying that because he doesn't have that kind of background, that he feels less comfortable making videos on that topic. And I really don't think it's fair to jump at him and say that you have to do that or else you're a hypocrite or
I
or
totally fucking disagree again.
You
That's
can, but you might
absurd.
You might totally fucking disagree, but hang on there. Saying that he doesn't feel comfortable making a video and having no problem with other people doing so on their own accord, you know, he's not saying that you shouldn't. And some of the criticisms are suggesting that he is, which he isn't. And the other thing is that he's suggesting that there's certain damage control, or there's a certain ratio that he's concerned about. That if he goes out and makes a video, he's thinking about, okay, there may be that one or two people that are mentioning. Maybe one or two people somewhere hear something and it creates some good. But he's worried that while I'm doing that, there might be 300 people who are here in America that make up the vast majority. It might be 3,000 people that make up the vast majority of his viewer base that then misinterpret that or go too far with it or use whatever he says. He mentioned some of his earlier videos had more teeth than he wanted them to. They might then take that and it creates a increasing xenophobic, an increasing anti-Muslim attitude they have that ends up getting vented on some moderate American Muslim. And he's just saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, he's saying that he doesn't feel comfortable personally making a video that might end up that way. And I just don't, I can't get on board with this. You have to make videos about this or else you're not doing this. YouTube channels are there to produce the content that you want to produce. And I don't think it makes him hypocritical for taking some pause and saying, maybe I'm not the best person to talk about this, and maybe I'm not going to be pleased with the results if I do. So I'm going to hold back, and if I hear things that I like from other people that are more qualified, then I'll bring attention to them. I just don't see what's so terrible about that.
Okay, well, let me illuminate it, and let me tell you why I think that's silly. If your main goal is the empowerment of women and the safety of women in society, bringing them out of oppression, don't you think that you would familiarize yourself with the avenues where you could do the most good? Don't you think that you would familiarize yourself enough with Islam, especially Islam, to make those videos, to be able to speak about it intelligently, and make it a part of your MO? Wouldn't you do that if you believed that, or you just looked at the simple fact that Islam is the #1 oppressor of women in the world? Wouldn't you want to do that? That's my point. My point is, I don't think you're a bad person for not doing it. I do think that it smacks of a particular hypocrisy if you're not willing to do the work in your activism to understand these points. And the same can be said for Christianity. If we're not willing to learn about Christianity, if we're not willing to learn counter-arguments and be the good apostates that we need to be, then we're doing the discussion a disservice. And I think that part of it's right, that if you don't have a good grasp on the material, that you could end up doing more harm than good. But what I'm not hearing is, I need to learn everything that I can about Islam because these fuckers are the ones who are shitting on my activism the most.
And also there is room to elaborate and make it pretty damn well clear who you're actually addressing. You can make it clear, hey, I'm not talking about, your average Joe Muslim who lives over by the mall in America. I'm talking about this guy over here. You know, why not? Why can't you do that?
Well, you know, Grappling Ignorance said something in what he just said that is I kind of got at a little bit earlier when I said, you know, it's important to me to be able to figure out when I should be talking and when I should be listening. And he said that maybe I'm not the best person to talk about this. And I think the difference between what Meridianfrost is saying and what I'm saying is he's looking at the absolute horror of the plight of women under fundamentalist Islamic regimes and saying these women have it probably worse than any other women in the world. Like they have so few rights, they have so few regard in their own, so little empowerment in their culture. So they have the most room to grow. They're in the most need of help. They're in the most need of improvement. So that's where I need to focus. And I understand that. But where I'm coming from is, even though I agree with you that is an area in desperate need of activism and reform, and that certainly fundamentalist Islam oppresses women worse than other religions in the world today. I don't disagree with that. But where we do disagree is I don't think that I personally, as an American, as a Westerner, as a non-Muslim, or someone who has never been a Muslim, has not experienced Muslim culture at all, has no understanding of Muslim culture, no matter how well schooled I may make myself, no matter how tight my understanding of Islamic doctrine and theology may become, I have never had the experience of living in a Muslim culture and understanding their conventions and their social mores, and I don't know if that's the area where I can do the most good. I just don't.
All right. Well,
I think I can do much more good in this culture than in trying to address problems in those other cultures from here.
Where I have a problem, though, is, you know, you when you say I, that's fine. You know, you're talking about yourself there. But then when you add on as an American, as a Westerner, and that's what I have a problem with, because it's like this collectivist idea that, you know, oh, you can't empathize with somebody who is a different skin color or a different, you know, gender, or and it lives in a different country. Yes, you can. You can relate to them. You can say things that are logically coherent, that follow a logical progression, and make a logical argument that is compelling and makes sense, despite where you come from or what race you belong to.
I'm not saying you can't empathize with them. I would like to think that I do empathize with them. You know, I would like to think that I feel for them and I feel outraged for what they're going through. I'm just saying that despite my empathy for them, I don't think that I am the best person that I don't think that cause is where I am most useful.
All right, so can I please jump in? I've actually messaged in the thing that I would like to talk a little while ago, and I'd just like to say something. And no, it's okay. This is really important, and as a person who has a vagina, I feel like I have some reason to talk in this situation, and I have something to say to you, okay? Based on the stuff that's going on in Islamic countries, the way that I have tried to empathize and reach out is by talking to them. I've interviewed a woman who had the balls to take her veil off, and I put her on my show and talked to her about the situation that she went through and made everybody aware of the fucking shit she went through and the abuse that she went through in the country that she was in. I also talked to a person who was an atheist in an Islamic country and was targeted for killing, and he had to come here for asylum. This person is very well known in the atheist community and is very easily accessible and will come on to any show or any video and talk to you about these kinds of issues. But most importantly, I find it really bizarre that you are sitting here and saying that you will not speak for that group because you're not a part of it, yet you continuously speak for fucking women all the time, and that is your main thing that you're stacked on, and yet you have a penis. I don't understand how you can't stand up for these people and the shit that they go through. I'm sorry, I can't buy it. I am not buying it at all. Sorry, and you know I like you, but I can't buy it.
I understand. I would argue that I would argue your claim that it's my main thing. I actually, despite what people say about me, I don't really talk about feminism all that much. And you're right. There have been times where I have maybe presumed to be speaking for women, and I try not to do that. I try to signal boost people. I try to say, this, look at what this person said. You know, this is something that needs to be heard. I try not to be that guy who is like, you know, here's what women need to do, and, you know, I'm trying to do it from a feminist perspective, but I'm basically just being a dick and saying, here's what women need to do. I, as a man, am going to tell you. I have a problem with that too, and I'm not going to say that I'm completely innocent of that, because you're right, I have done that. But I'm not comfortable with that. I don't like. I would rather do less of that and do more being supportive and being more of an ally, because I think that's the best use for me in that situation.
I actually think that you should stand up for things that are going on, as well as stand up for what's going on with Islamic women. I think that you need to educate yourself on what's going on and possibly interview some people and talk to them. There are so many people out there that are easily accessible for you to talk to and for you to interview. And I'm not like ripping on you only. I'm ripping on a lot of people. These people are easily accessible for you to talk to and understand that what they're talking about, they are the ones that are labeled anti-Islamic, by the way. They're the ones that are told that they are racist, even though they're part of that race. They are the ones that are being targeted for death. Okay? So, and these people have escaped to our country for protection from those views. These views are not the fundamentalist views things. I have a problem with that, because yes, in America there are a lot of people who are Islamic that aren't necessarily going along with these viewpoints. But we have to look at the bigger picture, and you are the one who's always telling me about the bigger picture. Every time we've had a discussion or an argument, you've said, oh, these little tiny things aren't the big deal. We have to look at the bigger picture. If we look at the bigger picture and what is actually harming a lot of women and a lot of atheists in this fucking world we live in, it is those Islamic views. There's tons of war. There's tons of sexism. There's tons of really repressed issues that are going on, and we need to be facing these. We need to be talking about these. We can't say we can't talk about it just because we might misrepresent one or two things and get called out on it. Like, we have to be honest. I'm
not saying we shouldn't talk about it. I'm saying that we, as a group, collectively need to be better at talking about it, and I don't know if my contribution would make it better. I wouldn't, and I would not want to make it worse. Well, that is basically the point that I'm trying to make. And I would hate to think that in trying to further the cause, you know, of women's liberation in Islamic parts of the world, or gay rights in Islamic parts of the world, or whatever, that I actually ended up making it worse.
Well, I mean, but don't you think that there's a danger with treating Islam with kid gloves, making it worse?
I don't think it should be treated with kid gloves.
Okay.
I think I think that there's a definite need to critique Islam and to push for reforms in those cultures. I think it's incredibly important, as I said earlier, and as you were kind enough to echo, that it's important to identify groups in those countries that are doing that work, because often even people who try to speak out in favor of say, you know, women's rights in the Muslim world don't know that there are feminist groups in Islamic countries that are doing stuff right now that in many cases are in great danger for the work that they're doing, because what they're doing is threatening this social order that says what they want and what they're doing ought to be completely forbidden.
So to support them, you talk about it. That's,
yes,
that's what I'm saying is like, and here's the thing. I understand not wanting to misrepresent situations. I understand that 100% because I like to research the shit out of things. But I think what Tommy was saying is a legit thing to say. We have to be able to fail when we talk about issues. We have to be able to be wrong and adjust and concede. That's what was making YouTube so great back in the past. I can't tell you how many times Josh had said in this very talk that he was wrong when he was discussing stuff with Veritas 48. He got pwned by a Christian at times. But
That's
he
true.
loved that challenge. It made him better. It made him better at arguing and discussing, and it made him a better person. And that's what we need to get back to. We need to go away from this, we need to be 100% right all the fucking time thing, and go, yeah, sometimes I fail, sometimes I'm wrong, sometimes I need to concede. That's a better place for us all to be. And I honestly think that's where Josh is coming from with this, is we need to be able to be wrong sometimes.
Well, I'm not saying that, like I think I made this point earlier, I'm not saying that we can't ever be wrong, or that we should, that the standard is we have to get it perfect every time. And I'm not saying that, being wrong isn't an incredibly important part of getting better and of learning. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that in speaking out and inevitably occasionally getting it wrong, I want to make sure that I'm not also just being irresponsible. And I think Grappling Ignorance put it really well when he sort of came to my defense and he white knighted for me a couple minutes ago. But
Steve, don't you think it's a little irresponsible not doing anything?
I feel like we've talked about this already. I mean, I feel like it has to be done, and and these reforms need to be pushed for, right? Talking specifically about the plight of marginalized people in parts of the Muslim world. I think that's really important, and I think that work needs to be done, right? But the fact that I don't feel myself personally qualified or personally in a good enough position, either in terms of my own information or in terms of my place in the world, my cultural, regional place in the world, just because I don't think that I am placed well to do that, doesn't mean that I think it shouldn't be done, or that I don't think it needs to be done, or that I am being irresponsible by choosing not to do it and to focus on areas where I think I have more useful things to say.
Are you then giving the floor to people who won't do it the way you think it should be done?
No, hopefully I'm giving the floor to people who'll be a lot better at it than I would be.
But
I mean, that's my hope.
I go under the Martin Luther King Jr. kind of viewpoint of things, where if you're just sitting there on the sidelines and not doing anything, you're actually part of the problem. And I've always stood by that viewpoint. We have to have a voice. If we are capable of reaching a lot of people, especially, we are held accountable to educate people on these issues. And I don't think that it's necessarily your responsibility, Steve, to talk about this. But if your main thing, and I know you try to say it's not, but your main thing is to try to talk about feminism and the importance of women being upheld and being equal, this should be the horse you're riding on. Like, it really should be. And I think that's what we're trying to say, is like, this should be important to you on such a level that you would educate yourself more and possibly reach out to more people.
It is important to me. The point that I keep trying to make, though, is that even though it's important to me, that doesn't necessarily mean that I am the best person to do it. And it doesn't even necessarily have to do with my own education. A lot of it has to do with the way people like me, and like all of us in the room right now, are perceived by a lot of people in the Muslim world.
But isn't that in itself presumptuous? You're assuming that they're basically bigoted.
No, I'm assuming that a lot of folks in the Muslim world, I'm not saying everybody, and I'm not saying that there's not a single Muslim that wouldn't be willing to listen to, a well-presented argument from a Westerner. Clearly that's not the case. But in terms of Islamic cultures in general, I do think there's that it's fairly broadly accepted that, Western interference in Eastern affairs has not been regarded terribly well. It doesn't mean that we should never say anything, or we should never do anything.
Do you think it was out of place for Bernie to walk alongside MLK and stand beside those? Okay, so then what is the problem? I'm very confused at this point.
Well, walking alongside is great. Walking alongside is what I would like to do. Walking alongside is what I would like to do. But, Bernie walked alongside. Bernie didn't, Bernie let King give the speech. Bernie didn't.
Walking alongside is a lot of speech, and I know that people don't think that is, but that is a lot of speech. There's a lot being said there. And part of protesting something is is having your voice heard and saying, I disagree with this. It's not saying that you are anti-white or that you are anti, whatever is going on in the culture. You're just saying, hey, I think that these people should have their right to be able to speak out and have their rights upheld. So it's not, you don't have to be out there saying, fuck Islam, kill them all, like Tommy might have seemed to have said in one of his videos. But I don't think he meant it that way.
Kill them all. Get rid of them all.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Then we wouldn't have to talk about this subject.
Shut the fuck up, Tommy.
Be one less subject in the world.
And we all know that Grappling Ignorance did a really good job discussing that.
Hold on just a second. I'm shamelessly plugging the show again. If you enjoy what you're looking at here in this discussion, please don't forget to click the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate you all being here and engaging in the discussion and listening to us go on and on and on about the Steve Shives show. So if you would do me a favor, please, and click the like, I would very much appreciate it. Thanks for coming. So moving along from the. I'm sorry, you had something to say?
Not on that. Yeah. Actually, I was just going to. I had several things to say about the main topic before we got onto the beating the dead Steve Shives horse, about the status of YouTube atheism, its existence, and its changes. I didn't know if that was the direction you were going to move to, if we'd moved past that too far, or if there was something else that you wanted to bring up.
Well, no. I mean, we wanted to talk about what the past was like and how we felt. We wanted to talk about our present and what we think that our usefulness is on YouTube these days, and we want to talk about what things are going on in the future. So we can open that up for discussion. I want to close it out in about 20 minutes. I don't want to run too long.
Okay.
So we can talk about some of that stuff and go around the room and see what some different opinions are on YouTube in general.
May I then be permitted to discuss that very topic and take what I guarantee will be fewer than 20 minutes?
Yes, absolutely. Please do. You don't ever have to ask me permission to say anything.
What was mentioned earlier, the value of that feeling of community. I think it was Dark Matter talked about how you don't, that atheists don't, or at least didn't used to, have that same kind of community as people who go to church. And I think that sense of community is for many, and was for me, that much more important. It was more important because the people that go to church are being around people who have that huge majority in the country. It's not like when they go to work, they're surrounded by people who disagree with them, and then church is that place that they go to finally be around people who do agree with them. So it's even more important to find that sense of community for a lot of non-believers. And for me, I was in both physically and like in terms of my geographic location and my mental state, I was in a fairly bad place when I started my YouTube career. I had moved to the South, and the rural South, and it was only a couple of years after I had reached my point of full deconversion, and it was a real clashing for me. I was considered a complete outsider. I was essentially an outcast in a lot of different ways, including that. And for me, YouTube was a place where I could come and talk to people, and I could present ideas, and I could kind of vent all the concerns from things that I'd heard from coworkers and people in my community, and all these things, all these arguments that I kept hearing, even if they weren't presented to me as arguments, but just things that I've been hearing. It was a place where I could come and vent that in a healthy space and have people actually find value in what I was saying, rather than thinking that they should burn me at the stake. And I want to speak to, in terms of the value that value still exists for a lot of people. And everybody in this conversation, everybody on this talk has been doing this for a long time. And I had a video in response to Coughlin where I talked about this. We tend to, after we've been around for a while, we oftentimes divorce ourselves from the feelings of people who haven't been around this for a while. And we sometimes think that our world is kind of everybody's world. And, well, this topic has been talked about forever, and everybody already knows about that. So something like Pascal's wager, we think, well, nobody takes that seriously. You know, that's been covered a million times. Why should anybody talk about that? Whereas there's some 17-year-old right now, or probably several hundred or whatever number it is, 17, 16-year-old kids that are out there who have no idea that that's a very commonly debunked nonsense argument, and there are so many reasons that it's wrong. And there's somebody who is fresh to atheism, someone who's newly deconverted, that is looking for someone to talk about the things that are on his or her mind. And for those people, that continued discussion, or knowing that there are people out there who talk about these things or have libraries of content about those things, has a lot of value to those people. And like you mentioned, a couple of us mentioned, that you get information about that all the time. You hear responses from that all the time. So I get why people get kind of tired of that topic. And I think that Steve was the one who talked about how the response feature being removed makes YouTube less interactive, or it feels less interactive than it used to be. And I'm sure that that's a part of it. But I feel like it seems, because a lot of us remember like that heyday, and that heyday has passed, for at least for us. I'm sure there are some people who every day they go onto YouTube and they stumble across one of our videos or somebody else's videos, and they realize that YouTube isn't just a place with cat videos and pranks gone wrong. You know, that YouTube has actual discourse and discussion. I mean, it was like 2006, 2007 when that hit me like a ton of bricks, that I found out, holy shit, people on YouTube are talking to each other about things like philosophical debates, and it's not just facile, immature videos. So there are people that stumble across that every day, and the continued and at least existing production is still a value, and not to say that people should continue making the same videos about the same things in the same way. Bionic dance. But it is to say that there's value in continued discussion where there's something to be discussed that matters to people.
Yeah.
And real quick, one last thing.
No, go ahead.
Last thing is the real challenge that I think Dark Matter touched on it, is so many of us are kind of caught in this bind about who our audience is and what are we trying to do. And when you kind of get to the point of, I want to, and Dark Matter I think does this phenomenally well. You want to engage theists, right? And you want to challenge certain people about this issue or any number of issues, while simultaneously being entertaining to the people that agree with you. So that can be really difficult, because a lot of times the people that agree with you they really want you to just slam dunk things. And if you actually want to have civil discourse, sometimes that requires taking a more nuanced approach to things. So I think that has led to and continues to be an issue where that kind of balance, do I slam dunk this person, or do I approach them with a degree where they can actually feel like I'm responding to them and I want to have a discussion with them. I think that is, people tend to go towards the slam dunk, and they tend to go towards what's entertaining. They tend to go towards what's popular, and I think that's led to a lot of the decay in quality of interaction. I'm done. I'm out.
Well, thanks for that. Does anybody else want to weigh in on it?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, go ahead, Tommy. We haven't seen you in all night with the.
Yeah, I've been talking when you've been listening. Where
yeah,
you been?
No, you haven't.
What are you talking about?
You were in and out for the first hour and a half, Tommy. I love you, but that's the truth.
You keep booting me. That's why.
Yeah, I keep booting you. That makes sense.
That's right. It does make total sense.
I never boot, and I never fucking block.
All right, I've been doing YouTube videos probably longer than anybody here. Actually, I think I have been. I've been doing this since 2005.
Oh, you're the king now, huh?
I am the king. I'm also the genius of the group, so take it easy.
That's true. I won't interrupt you. I'm sorry.
I'm like, you could interrupt me all night long. That's fine.
Damn right I can.
Yeah, not really. But anyway. But anyways. I think it started as a little seed, atheism on YouTube. I really do, and I was part of that seed, and I'm thankful to be part of that seed. But I see as it went along, then we got to the stump, and that's where the stump was. That's where the heart of that atheist community was. What happened is I think that the tree started growing, and people started to branch out in different directions. See, at one particular time, it was like the atheist community pretty much agreed on everything. It was like go after Christianity, go after Christian. In the height of atheism, when I was coming up in there. But I think it's gone in so many different directions now, and that response thing is key, very key of what the downfall was. But I think, G.I. said that people were either doing it for entertainment or they were trying to have real debates. Now, I was one of the guys, obviously, that, hey, I'm going to pony in submission. I was more like the militant kind of atheist back then. And I think that faded away, and I think the entertainment value went down because the fans like to see the drama and everything else that was going on. So all you were left with is pretty much civil debates, which are great, don't get me wrong. I mean, I was still involved with those things, but I think the audience left at that point. I don't think the audience is as strong as it used to be. Now, plus, the atheist community is 50 times larger now. Now it's harder to find atheists. Well, not harder, but you know what I mean. Back then, we were all in the same area.
Sure.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
I knew you know everybody.
Sure.
I couldn't even begin to know how many atheists are out there now. I mean, I don't know them by name. I don't know anything about them. I even haven't seen a video from them. So I really think that the hardcore went away, and someone like Dev, he's in the chat room right now.
Right.
AIU, Atheist Unstoppable. He's like bringing that back. He's starting to bring that militant kind of thing back to atheism. But I don't know. See, the audience has changed so much, and that's why I think he's suffering for right now. I think if AIU started back in 2005, he'd have 3 million subscribers.
I think it's a good point that you make because, I mean, at least in my experience, there were a lot of people who were searching back then, and they didn't really know what they liked. They didn't know where they stood. They just held their beliefs as true, and they didn't really question it very much. And I think that the community has evolved into people really knowing where they stand, especially on social issues, and hoisting a flag and saying this is what I'm for, and I'm going to talk about it now. So I think that there's some validity in what you're saying there.
Here's my problem that I have. I enjoy people being able to call each other out. I think it's important. For me, with even my friendships, and you guys know this because I've all ripped in every single one of you. I think I've actually ripped in every single one of you. I think that's so important for friendship or for just reality. We have to keep each other in check. It's so important that we call each other out on our bullshit whenever it happens. And whenever we don't do that, there's a problem. So I appreciate people like Sargon of Akkad, like AIU, even if they're wrong about their shit. They're calling shit out and they're saying, hey, let's challenge each other. Let's get talking about this shit because that's important. We need to keep each other's heads to the grinder. It helps keep us sharp. It helps keep us understanding what's going on. If we're constantly keeping ourselves in a bubble of people that are agreeing with us all the time, but on top of that, not challenging one another, not telling each other we need to be better or make better arguments, first off, yeah, that's not entertaining. I agree with you, Tommy. That is very much not entertaining. But the thing is it's not even about that. It's about, are we growing? And I think that's what people are seeing. If we're not changing, if we're not adjusting, that is boring. Change is so much more important than staying the fucking same all the time and going around dictating that everybody has to be the same. Everyone has to be the same, and everybody has to think the same, and we need to stay cleansed and pure all the time. It's not a good world. When I read A Wrinkle in Time, there was a world where everybody was doing the exact same thing. Everybody was in this hive mindset, and everybody's bouncing the ball at the same time, and everybody's doing the exact same job. That's a boring world. I don't want to have that cleansed, pure, bleached world. I want everybody to be fucked up. I want everybody to call each other out. I want negativity to pop up every once in a while because that's what's going to make us better.
You want to make people think again.
Yes. That was what made us good, and that's what made us great.
Right, and that's what's good about these shows and all these other shows that are popping up. We're starting to make people think again. You know?
Well, to challenge, you know? We've evolved into something more than what we were before, I think. And to be able to challenge in our adaptation is paramount for the success of whatever we do on YouTube, whether it's posting live shows or it's posting our own video content. To be able to have that voice in its adaptation from where we were in 2010 and 2011 and grown to be what we are now. I think that the growth is important, but we need to discuss it. We need to talk about how we grew. We need to talk about why we grew and why we adapted, and we'll be able to adapt to things better in the future. I think that that's important to call out.
Oh, and by the way, I will call out for fun and shits and giggles since he's here. AIU, you took a video of mine and misrepresented it and tried to say that I had white guilt when I was actually trying to do a parody of somebody, and then you spliced it with another video to act as if I agreed with them, and then your only thing that you got right was that I was hot. So I just wanted to say that, yeah, if I have you here to listen to that shit, you got something fucking wrong, you missed a parody, you misrepresented me, but it's all good. I'm willing to chat with you at some point in time.
Oh, look, Live Life's here too, so I got to say one thing.
Yeah, go. Let's make the ripples in the fucking pond.
I got to say one thing since Live Life's here. Fuck Islam. Fuck Islam. There we go.
That was a stunning commentary. That was fucking amazing.
You probably brought him to orgasm.
Yeah, you probably did.
I do. As a lot of you know, I do tend to talk about, you know, what has become to be known as the social justice warrior. I know some of you might not like that term, but that's kind of the one I've been using. But what I've noticed is, as far as how the atheist community evolved, if you want to say it that way, you know, it started with the blasphemy challenge, you know, if you remember, and it was very simple, and we had a clearly cut antithesis of our position. We had a clear quote-unquote enemy. I hesitate to use that word, but everybody was against, you know, Christianity. You know, everyone was agreeing with each other about where we stood, and as we were winning and dominating YouTube, the theists they went away, and I think that that's a component that caused our current state of affairs, because what happened was you have these type of people who I call SJWs, who they kind of cannibalize each other. You know, like they don't have anybody to go after. They don't have anyone to look at them being virtuous anymore. Oh, look, I don't have any more Christians to pwn. Who else am I going to pwn? Well, I guess I'll go after this other atheist that I hate, who's saying these things. You know, let's make the atheist community. That's when, you know, you got Atheism Plus coming in and all these different controversies regarding.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
That's exactly what I mean by the branches, Dark Matter. That it went out in all these different directions.
Right, and well, that's what I think happened in the atheist community. I think it turned it kind of cannibalized itself.
Yeah, I think that's
I will agree.
Steve, you got anything to add?
No, I would agree with that. I mean, I think I come at it from the opposite side of where dark matter is coming from, because I do object to the term SJW. But I mean, but I think he's right that the community cannibalized itself, and I do think he's right on that. Part of what caused it was that the Christian targets sort of started to go away, and I think a lot of the community was sort of oriented toward having a target. You know, a lot of people, hopefully I think the people in this room had a more constructive view of it and didn't view them as targets, but as adversaries of people to have conversations with and people to challenge each other. But I think there was also a lot of, well, we need to have a target. We need to have somebody to attack. We need to have somebody to pwn. We need to have somebody to show that we're smarter than. And when the well sort of ran dry for Christians to fill that role, either because the arguments had all just been gone over and over so much that it just got tedious, or the actual people that they were talking about just stopped making videos or just sort of pulled out and said whatever, then I think atheists started to turn on each other. And then, yeah, I think what united us was that there was that common target of, well, there's atheists and then there's Christians. And once the Christians stopped, you know, being the ones that we're engaged with the most, then all of a sudden all of the differences in the atheist community that had always been there started to become much more prominent and much more important in the way we interact with each other.
But I mean, you like you say, you come at it from a different direction, but and I perceive that direction. You know, I notice a clear difference. But even amongst the people who you agree with, given enough time, you know, you stop interacting with the other side, and then you guys fight with each other because, you know, these people. Some people just need that attention. They need to be looked at as being the virtuous one. Oh, they're fighting against an enemy here, against, you know, what is it called? Virtue signaling. I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. There are people. I mean, maybe you guys have the same experience, but there are people that I am like really close friends with online. I don't think I've met very many of them in real life, but in terms of just online relationships that I'm really close with and I really, really like a lot, who fucking hate each other. You know, who like the only thing they seem to have in common is that I'm friends with them. And other than that, like they can't stand each other. There were two people who got into it on my Facebook page a couple of days ago. Two people who I absolutely adore. They're two of my best online friends. Cannot fucking stand each other. And you know, and I agree with them on a lot of stuff. Like, it's not like, well, one of them is, you know, like someone that I just think is an asshole, but I like him for personal reasons, and another person is someone that I agree with completely. Like, I agree with them both on tons of stuff, but they just fucking can't stand each other. So yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. There is definitely a fragmentation that continues to happen, and I don't know if it's because of people just like you said, the virtue signaling phenomenon, just wanting to have someone that they can put themselves against and say, I'm better than that, you know, I'm a better person than that. Mm-hmm. Or if it's just that people just love drama. I think another bad thing about YouTube is I think it really feeds drama. People just like to have shit to fight about.
Well, I don't know about that. We're gonna need Live Life to run up the numbers for us, so we can confirm that. We're going to have to consult a tool to know if that's true.
Oh, jeez. All right. Well, before this goes too long, I don't want everybody to have this think that it's long and drawn out. Let's just wrap it up.
Can we have a discussion? I don't know if Steve, if you're willing, but if I could bring on somebody who actually came from a country that was predominantly Muslim and fought against it and had death threats against them, and were able to come onto the show and talk, would you be willing to be on that show and discuss with them?
Oh, of course. Okay,
great. I don't know if you'd be willing to do that, Josh, but I think that would be a very interesting show.
I think that'd be a good talk, and I'm never going to quit in saying that the empowerment of women is number one priority, at least from an activist standpoint, when it comes to Islam, and it's one of the reasons why Islam is as terrible as it is. It's just one of the many reasons why Islam is terrible as it is. there's good reason to fear Islam. So yeah, I'd love to have that discussion. That would be great. And we can do that another time. We'll just go around. Anybody have any final thoughts? We'll start with you, Dark Matter.
No, I don't have any. I'm sorry that I'm kind of a terrible speaker. I don't really think well off the cuff. I like to write, and that's my strength. So I'm sorry if I bored anybody.
No, I think you did a great job. Steve, anything final to add?
No, just thanks for having me. It was great to be here for the first show. I look forward to doing this again.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for being on. Shayrah?
Yeah, I would like to take the opportunity to explain that if AIU or Sargon want to be on the show, that they can be communicative with Josh for the next show, because he was in the middle of the show when you guys were demanding that they get on. You know, this is something that's usually discussed before the show. So, yeah, for future guests, maybe. I know everyone is talking about that, so I want to make sure to bring that to the table.
I don't have the chat open.
Yeah, if they're all freaking out that you didn't let them on, but I mean, he's in the middle of doing a show. He's kind of busy, you know.
And
so,
it's my first one. Yeah, reach out to me
show.
if you want to be on the show to discuss your point of view. By all means, please reach out to me. Send me a message. You can send an email to ThereforeGod@gmail.com. You could leave comments on this video after it posts to my channel. I would absolutely love to have dissenting points of view, because that's what we do here. That's what this show is about. So yeah, contact me and we'll work it out.
I just noticed Live Life just said they don't want him on the show. Josh would really like you on the show, because it's not just about the same opinions, it's about opposing opinions. So I don't know. I can't speak for him. I shouldn't speak for him. But
that's
I think
absolutely true, Tommy. It's absolutely true. Having dissenting opinions is important, and I'm telling you, this is the place where bad ideas come to die. I will fuck you in the ass with your bullshit if it warrants it, you know. And that's if this show is about anything, it's about that.
Oh, and also we have Armored Skeptic and Shoe on Head. Yeah. You're free to come on. People are free to come on.
Yeah,
messages.
Absolutely.
I don't believe that at any point this was billeted as like a call-in show, or that guests were just going to come on whenever you mentioned something in a comment thread. So, like Shayrah said, I don't think it's really a fair criticism to say, oh, well, you didn't let me in on this conversation, when it's not like, if I'm mistaken, I don't believe it was said that, hey, anyone can just jump in at any time, but that might be something to communicate, before a show takes place.
Yeah, that'd be important. So I'd be happy to give you a platform to anybody who wants to speak about this stuff.
I just want to apologize for my technical difficulties in the beginning. I don't know what it was, but I know what it was, actually. I was on Internet Explorer and I wasn't on Google Chrome. Something so simple like that, but I just want to say I appreciate you having me on, Josh. I want to thank all the viewers out there tuning in. And don't forget to thumbs up this video.
Yeah, please do. Okay, did I miss anybody? Did we get everybody in? I think we did. Yeah, we did. So, yeah, there it is. The very end of the very first episode of Therefore God. Please tune in next week. I'll have updates on my channel about guests who are going to be on. And we'll see you then. Thanks very much to the panel for showing up on my first show and making it easy. And thanks to all the viewers who are watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and click the like button if you enjoyed the show. So until next time, bye now. We'll see you Wednesday. Take care.